I would like to advise all those present that notice of this regular meeting of February 15th, 2023 has been provided to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey. Notice of time and place of this meeting has been included in the annual notice of meetings, which was posted and filed with the City Clerk and with the Jersey Journal and the Star Ledger. An additional notice of time and place was posted and filed with the City Clerk and was forwarded to the Jersey Journal and Star Ledger on February 10th, 2023. The regular meeting of the Municipal Council of the City of Bayonne is now in session. Ms. Medina, please call the roll.
Mr. Booker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Perez?
Here.
Ms. Weimer?
Here.
Mr. La Palusa?
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we read the ordinances, we're going to have a presentation from Joe Bauman. Mr. Bauman.
All right. So we're going to work off the PowerPoint that I have. It's over there. So let me begin by who am I, why am I standing in front of you, and what's the purpose of this presentation. So my name is Joe Bauman. I'm from McManaman, Scotland and Bauman. My background is redevelopment finance, primarily on the public sector side. I've been in this world and business for about 35 years. This particular project, I represented the city through advising the council, the mayor, the attorney, the general counsel's office through the process. But I wasn't alone. I was joined by a team. There was a team of us that have guided you through the city, through this process to this point. Mike Hanley from NW Financial is our financial advisor. Joe Nichols from my office, former tax assessor, attorney. From the developer, Bob Beneke and Cece Lassiter are here if we have questions. Behind us, the business administrator, Jay Coffey, his team, certainly the mayor, the council president, and the council. It was a collective effort to get us to the point today where we're making this presentation. It's a presentation and a project that I'm personally very proud to recommend to the governing body and look forward to describing it to you in this meeting. It's a significant project for sure for the city of Bayonne, both because of the sheer size, the $65 million guarantee that I'm sure people want to hear about and talk about, but also the jobs, the ratables, the public improvements. We're going to go through all that. Hopefully at the end, the council president's made sure that I not only do the presentation, but I carefully, thoughtfully, and entirely answer your questions to the best of our ability. That's why the rest of the team is here too. We're all here to answer all the questions about this very important project for the city. So first, it's called 1888 Studios. It's also known as Togus. It's located, I don't know if we can get that going there somewhere. So maybe go to the slide version. So let's start at the bottom. I was going to put it into slide mode, but that's fine. Usually it gets rid of the background stuff. We'll do this. All right. So 1888 Studios. Let's first take a look at. There we go. Thank you. Next slide. All right. So the past and present. This is really important to think about. We've been at this job of trying to develop, we mean the city of Bayonne, has been trying to get this property back on the tax rolls for decades. It was originally, next slide. This is what it looked like back in the day when it was a fully functioning industrial facility. It was ultimately closed and has laid fallow for decades. The city, in its wisdom, began a redevelopment process also almost 20 years ago, I believe, to turn what was there into a new project. That process, which is culminating in today's vote, went through several redevelopers, several designs, including at one point a substantial residential project on the site, until it comes to the proposed project today, which is neither residential nor industrial. Next slide. It's a movie studio, as I think everyone's well aware. Next slide. Which, this was a slide shared to us by the developer, but it's interesting to think about. The movie industry does actually have a history both in New Jersey and in Bayonne, beginning in 1888, hence 1888 studios, when Thomas Edison filed the patent for technology for the first motion picture. Rolling forward to the Horsley brothers, who opened a studio in Bayonne in 1907, rolling into 1912, and then today, where we're about to begin the process to have a $1.5 million film and movie studio. Next slide. The concept design. Next slide. So this concept that we're talking about today is, as everyone knows, at the base of the Bayonne Bridge near Avenue A. It's designed to be a state-of-the-art studio, again occupying 1.5 million square feet of space. Next slide. We're going to roll through these. This will sort of demonstrate to you that this is what's envisioned for this studio. It's been already through site plan approval twice. Next slide. The water tower, that to the left is the large parking that's going to be for all the employees working at the facility. Next slide. These are the offices that are on the front end of many of the studios. From the water looking back, Bayonne Bridge on your right, you can see, importantly in this picture, what will become a waterfront walkway. That is not the size of a sidewalk. It's sufficient to have bicycles, walking, and an emergency vehicle transverse all around the entirety of the peninsula. Next slide. Project delivery. This job, I know there's a lot of you that are interested in this, is currently slated to produce about 2,600 union construction jobs. The construction cost, that's the cost to actually build it, is estimated to be about $700 million. In order to get here, they had to substantially fill the site. It had to be raised up. It was too low. Had to get around the flood. That import was finished, is about to be finished, Q 2023, and then we're going to start vertical construction soon. Either this quarter or probably next quarter, and then currently slated to finish in 2025. So it's about a 2 to 2.5 year construction period. The facility itself. This is the revised facility. It was in the most recent site plan approval. I know there's been some discussion or concern about this becoming a warehouse someday, and let me sort of put that to bed now in my comments. First, it was not approved for a warehouse. A warehouse is not allowed in the redevelopment plan. It's actually prohibited. On the record at the site plan application, the applicants put on the record that they would not build a warehouse facility. In our redevelopment agreement, financial agreement, and the financing all contemplate a movie studio and not a warehouse. So this is going to be a warehouse studio under both the existing zoning, the plan, the site plan approval under oath, and the agreements that you're about to execute. Will be a studio, not a warehouse. Next. So the employment connected with this project, as I already mentioned, it's going to have about 2,600 equivalent construction jobs. Those are union jobs, 100% union. Once completed, and this is important, not only are there a significant amount of jobs, and this is what makes this project probably most unique compared to most other redevelopment projects, right? Residential or warehouses. The sheer number of full-time equivalent jobs that will come out of this site once completed, estimated to be 2,100. And those are not just a typical job you might find in a warehouse, for example. They are varied as varied as you can think. Office, crew, stunts, writing, editing, production, casting, makeup, a myriad of jobs. And then, importantly, if you think, and I thank Joe Ryan for this, if you go back and think about those people in those jobs, the number of unions that represent those kinds of people. So not only will this be a union job in construction, but most of those jobs also are covered by applicable unions. And we put together, again, thanks to Joe, a small list of the types of unions that represent people that might work at this facility. The investment in the community and the benefits. So we talked about a $900 million, almost $1 billion investment in Bayonne. That, as Mike reminded me today, that's unheard of in New Jersey. It happens in some places sometime, but neither here I could think of another example where $900 million worth of capital is being invested in a single project in an urban city in New Jersey. The 2,600 jobs, the 2,100 permanent jobs, the pilot payment, which we're going to talk about as we move through this process, $200 million to the governments over the life of the transaction. That's both the county, the state, and the municipality, and over $50 million in public improvements. Next. So one of the things that you also think about when you think about the impact of these projects is not just the immediate ratables to the taxpayers, but there's also direct, there's indirect, and there's induced, right? So you may make another dollar. You work here, you're going to spend that dollar in a grocery store. That grocery store is going to now have that dollar. So the direct, indirect, and induced, meaning it also induces more dollars to be spent. Benefit of this project is currently estimated to be $190 million annually once it's up and running. And I want to point out that a large portion, I think the estimate was around $140 million, is in salaries and wages. Next. The pilot. So the way this project is expected to work is there's a financial agreement that's on the agenda for discussion today. That financial agreement provides for a payment in lieu of taxes. It's not paying taxes. It means in lieu of standard taxes, you make a payment in lieu of taxes. The current stream of taxes will include primarily two streams. There's pledged and unpledged. The pledged are the ones that will go pay the bonds that will be issued, the $65 million worth of bonds we'll be talking about in a second. The unpledged is the money that flows to the city of Bayonne to offset taxes. Those two numbers for the life of the deal. So in this example, over the 30-year bond, $3.9 million will float. This is an average number. $3.9 million into the city, $2.9 million to cover the debt service for a total of about $6.8 million, totaling, again, to the city, the number from the prior slide. Thanks. So I thought it might be helpful to think about how this number of employees might compare to the largest employers in the city of Bayonne today. So we took this off of the 2021 official statement. So if you can see on this list, if you compare the 18-8 studios when fully built and fully operational, of course, the Bayonne Medical Center is next, but after that, among the private employers, not the government, you can see that it'll be the largest and substantially larger than any of the others, but for Bayonne Medical Center. Huge employer in the city of Bayonne. Next. We also took a look at the assessed value. So the assessed value is not the market value, but we made assumptions that the market value would be the $900 million investment. We applied the ratio, and as you can see, the assessed value of 1888 Studios will also exceed that of every other current property in the city of Bayonne, including IMTT, for example. Okay, tonight we're going to be talking about that there's a package of legislation that the council is going to consider. The first one is the financial agreement. This is the document in which the developer pledges to make certain payments over the 30 years. That's the annual service charge and the pledged annual service charge. And we built into that a minimum annual service charge. So there's a minimum number that has to get paid every year. There's a pledged number that has to get paid, and then there's above the minimum is the amount that we actually expect to get, which is the unpledged. The important thing to understand about that annual service charge is it's the same thing as paying taxes. And what I mean by that is if you fail to make an annual service charge payment, it's identical to failing to pay your taxes. That is important because ultimately that trumps every single lien behind it, the debt and the equity in the project. So in this case, that annual service charge, if there was ever something to happen, you can expect that the lenders and or the owners of the property will certainly continue to make those payments for fear of losing their property in the same way anyone else would lose their home or their business if they failed to pay the taxes and it was foreclosed on by the government. They are required to make a good effort to employ residents of the city in the project, and I know the union is also committed to that. We're gonna go through a robust effort to recruit and make sure that the residents of Bayonne are aware of the employment opportunities. They have an obligation to, back on the union, to give us certifications to make sure that they're complying. So there's a commitment, and then there's a certification, so we keep tabs on the process. Next slide. Special assessment. We use a special assessment as a way to sort of belt and suspenders the annual service charge. A special assessment is, if you're familiar with, someone puts a sidewalk in front of your house, there's a sewer line put in, sometimes governments will specially assess your property for the cost of that. So in our case, we are having them sign a special assessment agreement, which wraps the annual service charge so we can foreclose on their failure to pay either under their special assessment obligation or under their annual service charge obligation. That agreement is automatic, it's enforceable, it's perfected immediately, and they give up the right to challenge it in the agreements. The guarantee. So this guarantee is I'm sure, the source, in addition to the pilot, that is foremost on everyone's mind. I can tell you that this issue was the one that the governing body, the council president, the council, the mayor challenged the professional team on the most because they were concerned. $65 million is a big number. It's a big number by anyone's measure, right? How do we make sure that that $65 million doesn't come back to become an issue for the city of Bayonne? So the first thing to think about is, how does that $65 million compare to the value of the project when it's built? So the project, when it's built, is going to be worth, call it $900 million, right? Our $65 million loan that we're guaranteeing is about 7.2% of that. So there'll be 92.8 of equity over and above our loan. So you have to imagine a situation where the owner of that project or the lenders to that project conclude that they're better off not paying the taxes and losing their $800+ million worth of assets as a smart business decision. It's almost impossible to imagine someone concluding that this property, once it's built, will be worth that. So that's why this loan-to-value number, we think, is really important to the likelihood of them continuing to pay their taxes. And I've given this example to the mayor and the council and the governing body and Jay Coffey, but we've seen this tested in places with troubled assets. In particular, the one that I'm most familiar with was a project in another municipality where they also guaranteed a very large bond issue on behalf of a redevelopment project. It was a warehouse. The warehouse opened in the middle of the Great Recession, didn't have a significant tenant for like 3 to 4 years, went through 3 different owners because they failed. They never missed an annual service charge payment. Why? Because the lenders and the owners that ultimately owned it were never going to let that building be taken by the city. Same thing here. That level of loan-to-value is our first line of security that we'll never find ourselves where we're not paying the annual service charge, which is what pays the bonds. But we were not, we didn't stop there. We also negotiated, and this is unique, we haven't done this before, in this type of situation, a letter of credit. So, and Mike Hanley in particular worked really hard to get them to agree to a letter of credit. So a letter of credit is where a bank promises that if they don't make the payments, that bank will, right? And that letter of credit is going to be the first source of repayment if, in the scenario, which I don't think could ever happen, they don't make the payments on the annual service charge because of the reason I just told you. But assuming that happens, then the letter of credit bank steps in and makes the payments for them, and then they have to go back after they're developed by the property. They step into the shoes of the property owner. So that is the first source of repayment. Then the annual service charge and our ability to foreclose on the property is behind that. So it's the loan-to-value ratio, which is extraordinary, and then the letter of credit. That double barrel security is what we'll rely on to make sure that that $65 million bond, once it's issued, doesn't become a burden on the city taxpayers. Next one. The redevelopment agreement. This will be approved by resolution tonight. This is more typical of what I thought Bayonne has seen a lot of over the years. I should have mentioned John Wisakala. Where is he? John. Okay, John. John also a critical member of the team. My bad for not calling him out. So John was the architect behind the redevelopment agreement. Like every deal, it has a project schedule. You got to begin, you got to go through the process, and you got to complete. They have to remediate the property. They're done. They're pretty much done with the remediation. They have some additional fill. That's the cap, but they're done. They have to do infrastructure improvements. There's going to be water, wastewater, stormwater, utilities. There may be some track improvements down at the end of the road. They're going to make up to a $2 million contribution to our stormwater improvements for the region. Those are stormwater improvements that are needed for all of the properties in the area, not just theirs. And they're going to have to pay water and sewer connection fees. They're going to be responsible for their own garbage, for recycling and refuse. And so this has been important along the process. They have been through an escrow and will continue through the balance of this process. Pay all of your team. Everyone up here is being paid through an escrow. So even our efforts on your behalf have been funded through an escrow, not out of the taxpayers' money. They're going to have to make a substantial, very substantial contribution to affordable housing under the statewide non-residential development fee. Because of the sheer size of their project, which is how you measure the fee, it'll be the largest fee, I'm pretty sure, that Bayonne will receive, probably ever. The traffic improvements, we have to make a pro-rata contribution to Port Authority. Port Authority is looking for an offset from the various property owners. They're going to have to make a payment to them. And then they're going to agree and have agreed to work with the Board of Education to involve students in a collaborative way that may be interested in industry for educational or perhaps even job opportunities, to have this City of Bayonne's education department participate, and the students participate in some way at this sort of unique facility over the years. So that's the presentation. Again, we have the entire team. I'm here to answer questions. We have the entire team to answer questions. As I said, Council President, Council members, we're very clear with all of us. We need every one of you here. We need you to be ready and prepared to answer the questions from the public on this incredibly complicated, complex, important, meaningful, transformative, legacy, generational, sort of any adjective you could think of, project for the city of Bayonne. So, Council President.
Does anybody have any questions? Please raise your hand and come forward. Please mention your name and address when you come to the podium.
Good evening, Gail Godeski. Good evening, Mr. Bowman.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you for taking time.
What is your address, please?
828 Kennedy.
Thank you.
Based on your presentation, you mentioned utilities. Isn't utilities taken off the rendering? We discussed that at the special meeting 2 weeks ago.
The utilities, they're responsible for water, sewer, stormwater, electric.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that's not going to be part of the original rendering, correct? You're taking a lot away from the original. When we met at Bayonne High School, you showed a beautiful picture, and I have a rendering of the original project here now.
Right. I think what happened between one to the second one, fewer buildings slightly, the garage became above grounds, larger, but by and large, virtually very similar.
Like I mentioned at the special meeting, a lot of things were taken off of the original project.
I don't think so.
Yes. If I could go back to the minutes of last meeting, there was a lot taken. The office buildings, the special buildings.
There was, so they did move some of the offices inside the warehouses, and so that, I think that's what you're thinking. There were some.
The underground garage is gone.
Yes.
The big office building,
Right.
et cetera. So you're looking at the original rendering versus the new rendering, which looks just like your picture that you showed.
All right, I
up
put the
there.
new one on there,
Looks
yeah.
like all warehouses.
It's
But
not.
My question to you is, which is the financial agreement that was given to me after the special meeting, the same as presented to the local finance board?
Yes.
Okay. At the special meeting, I asked Mr. La Palusa, I provided Mr. La Palusa with a list of the changes, correct? And you
After the
have
meeting,
those
you
changes.
did.
After the
Yes.
meeting, I did, because at the end of the meeting, you asked, there were changes with a question mark.
Okay.
So I forwarded you all of the list of those changes, and I could get my phone and go over them, and there's
Right.
quite a few changes.
I didn't ask in that way, but I agree with you that we talked about changes, and one of the ones I know that you mentioned was a power supply building as well.
Yes, with Verizon and everything else.
Right.
Okay. My next point is, so what you discussed today is exactly what we got after the special meeting 2 weeks ago, correct?
So the picture, are we talking about?
The picture and
terms?
all the wording, et cetera, the resolutions and everything.
So I didn't have any of those things up there, but the words that I gave to you describe the project as it was previously documented. I put the most recent picture because since the community meeting, as you know, they went back to the planning board, they got some changes made to the site plan. But the changes are primarily expanding the garage and lifting it out of the ground, moving.
It's for employees only, you said, correct? You said that during your presentation, right?
Maybe, I think the developer said that, yes. Not me, but yes.
Oh, I think you said that during your presentation. You said it was for the employees.
I didn't, but I believe that to be true, but it came from the developer, because I don't know.
Okay, so now here's my next point. The mayor in his Mayor Weekly Corner,
Yeah.
he did say that there's going to be a lot of benefits. By no means am I against this project, but what I am against is the $65 million bond that a French financier that owns an island, dated a fancy model, has a yacht, has $1 billion in net worth, and we, a city of Bayonne, is going into the lending business. It is wrong. Now, my next point is, the mayor said that we're going to get a lot of benefits. We were promised same benefits with a lot of other projects. Taxes have gone up every year. Schools are more crowded. Crime is up. Parking is worse than ever. Streets are filthy. What benefits have those who already live here gotten? What will we get? What can you guarantee us if we give you that $65 million? What can you guarantee us besides the jobs? These union guys are here. Some of them are standing on the unemployment line. Yes, they need jobs. I'm not against that. But what I am against is, and I have to say your favorite word, Neil, it behooves me to say this. December 14th, the local planning board, according to Nicholas Bennett, the secretary of the local finance board, received the application with your signature on it, asking to please consider on January 11th's meeting. Now, I asked him via email for a copy of the application, and I received a copy of the application from Madam Clerk after the special meeting. I compared them. They are the same. However, the planning board did not meet until after the local finance board approved the changes. The local finance board met in the morning. Planning board met at night. You already had the changes to the local finance board, and you promised that you would have meeting after meeting after meeting back in September. And we only had, this is the third meeting, two of which are council meetings. We have to discuss this. So how did you, and last night, the local finance board just presented the resolution for approval with all the amended changes. So how did you and the administration sign the document to the local finance board before the Bayonne Planning Board heard public comments and approved the changes? How is that possible?
So the application we submitted was accurate as of the planning board, right? We agree, right? And there was changes made after.
Before the planning
Which I
board
can assure
approved it.
you are not material to the local finance board's analysis of the project. Whether or not we have a 250-car park garage or a 300-car garage, it's not what they're looking at. Whether or not we have 4 buildings or 5 buildings, it's not what they're looking at.
Mr. Baumann, with all due respect, it's like getting a mortgage. I go to a bank and I get a mortgage for a 6,000 square foot house. They give me the mortgage, then I decide to build a 3,000 square foot house?
No, the house is the same size. It's still 1.5 million square feet. That didn't change.
Well, the land didn't change. Of course, the land's not going to change, but the
No,
buildings
no, no, no.
and the
No, the
structures.
square foot of the improvements didn't change. They got rearranged, but they didn't change.
They did change.
No,
You
no, they're
took a
still-
lot of it away.
No, it's still 1.5 million square feet.
So tell me, what benefits is the city of Bayonne going to get from this project besides the jobs which are needed?
Right, so there's the public park and walkway around the peninsula, right? There's the ratables, which, as we pointed out, they'll be substantial. They'll be the largest, if not, where they and the IMTT are exactly in terms of Bayonne is close, but they'll be one of the largest, if not the largest taxpayer in the city of Bayonne. And
Bayonne Board of Ed is the largest.
taxpayers, Bayonne, taxpayers.
Well,
Not
Bayonne Board of Ed is the largest employer.
employer, but I'm talking about private sector employees, which are different than government, right? So they'll be the largest employer, they'll be the largest or second largest taxpayer for the city of Bayonne, and they really won't be demanding a whole lot of services, right? So that new rateable won't require any more school children, by way of example, to go to the schools. That new rateable probably won't require a substantial increase in the police department or a whole new bunch of people hired in the tax collector's office or things like that. So it's going to be a huge net positive, meaning the revenues off that project will be substantially by multiples of lot as compared to the cost to service that. In particular, remembering no school kids for all those taxes.
How can you
So
say?
those are benefits too.
How can you say that the local finance board had no impact, knowing that there was a change that was not approved in the agreement,
So-
in the application?
So that-
How is that possible? You deceived the local finance board.
So let me share with you this. After you called the local finance board, they called me. And the staff member said, Joe, I got a concern. They didn't say who it was, so now I know it's you.
Yes.
Someone said that, in fact, what you're trying to do here is do warehouses. And he said, I know that you, who was a lawyer and swore, and all the professionals who put their hand on the Bible and promised to tell the truth, wouldn't come to the local finance board to present a studio, which is going to be a warehouse. I said, of course that's not happening. It's still a studio facility. It's still the same square foot. So
Mr. Baumann,
I-
with all due
look,
respect, it is a studio now, but you know what the word in Bayonne, and it's over and over again, amended, 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 amended. Every developer comes back and asks for an amendment, and it's usually approved. So if eventually, if they don't get any tenants, which, as I understand from the meeting 2 weeks ago, there were no tenants. Are there tenants now?
No.
Yeah, so there's no tenants
It's not
now.
built.
So it possibly could, never say never. Look at what happened to Atlantic City. And Newark didn't pay for any of their project. Oceanport didn't have to put in any money. My concern is the $65 million that the city of Bayonne is shelling out, signing on the dotted line a letter of credit to benefit a French financier that the mayor talks about in his weekly corner. That's my concern.
And your concern was the mayor's concern, council president's concern, every member of the council who I've spoken to individually when they call the questions and challenge us to make sure we did the right thing. Everybody shares your concern, even us. And that's why we work really hard to protect you from that concern.
Yeah, but what was the rush? Why did you not bring the changes forward to the council meeting and the caucus meeting to show the public what the changes were
I still
before
don't know
you
what changes you're
presented it?
talking about. I apologize. I have no idea. If you're talking about this different garage, or that the offices moved inside a couple buildings, those changes, they happened at the planning
There's a
board.
list of changes. Do you still have my email? Can you read those changes off, please?
Look,
We believe you that there's changes, and I agreed with you, but I'm not going to read off
Yes,
the list of
yes, you did.
changes.
there were no
And
material
I
changes.
thank you for that.
There were no material changes, let me assure you. There were no material changes. There will be plenty of immaterial changes till the day they finish building.
Mr. Baumann, you still didn't answer my question. You deceived the public
Look,
by taking a picture of a rendering that the public knew nothing
Let's
about.
be crystal clear on this one point, and I won't say it more than once. If you accuse me of deceiving somebody one more time, I'm not going to, you can challenge me, you can ask all the questions you want, but I won't have you
Well,
challenge my
what's-
integrity.
what's another word?
Excuse me, I
I'm
will
not
have you challenge my
challenging your integrity.
in this meeting. We can talk about it offline, but to accuse me of deceiving someone, it's a whole nother level, which I'm not going to deal with.
I'm
So we can
not-
move on now, I'm done talking with it.
Let's move on to the next, if you have another question,
I'm
please ask it.
I'm not accusing you of being deceitful as an individual. It's the paperwork that was presented, wasn't approved by the Bayonne Planning Board.
I will stake my reputation on the fact that we were truthful throughout the entire process on every single material term. If there's immaterial things, yes, those things change, and they will continue to change. But I'm telling you, what we presented to them was truthful. I did it under oath, and what I'm telling you now is truthful.
Thank you.
Pat Desmond.
How you doing?
Pat Desmond, 131 West 4th Street, Bayonne.
Hey, Pat.
Hey, Joe. I spoke last time about, first of all, I'm pro-union, and I support this project. I don't support the $65 million bond,
understand.
but I do support 100% union, like you're saying. That's going to be put in the contract in writing, correct?
Yes, sir. And the
And
project
that's
labor
not going to
agreement,
change when they go to start building,
they've already signed a PLA.
okay? All right, I want to know, how much does your firm stand to make off the $65 million bond?
Well, it's not clear that my firm will handle the $65 million bond. You have us and you have a bond counsel. So at this point in time, I may not be the firm handling the bond.
Okay, and who would be the underwriter?
We also don't have an underwriter yet either.
Okay, so
That's definitely not
if it
fixed.
is your firm, you would stand to say, what, 10%?
No. Of $65 million? No.
600,
No.
like
It's
650,000.
like $1, 60,000 or something like that, 65. Yeah, it's not,
Not 650.
no, Pat. That'd be great. I'm glad you asked that question.
I want to ask the question.
Yeah, no.
So I'm just concerned this is going to be 100% union?
Yes, sir. Again, the
Start
PLA
building
side.
when?
Well, they're,
In another month, you said?
If I can jump in here, you're going to hear later on that a PLA was actually negotiated and executed.
Okay.
The union is here to talk about this. It was negotiated right up until showtime today. And a lot of effort went into this. It's 100% union labor. Mr. Kelleher will come up and describe the particulars, but there's a written and signed document by both parties.
That's all I want. Is the union people working there now? I know they were level on the ground. Is that union down there now? Yes? Yes, we're already there. All right.
But Pat, I would never recommend something to a client because I would get a good fee, I can assure you. That would never happen in my
No,
life.
I just want to know
Yeah,
how
no,
much.
yeah.
I mean,
Maybe they'll hire me.
is it a good project because you're making
Let's-
$650,000 off it?
No.
Is it a good
No
project?
bond counsel, not me, not whoever they pick, will ever
All
make
right.
$650,000.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions on the presentation or for Mr. Baumann? For any one of our other professionals?
Yeah, we have the whole team here.
Yes.
Mike Masigno, 42 West 23rd Street, Bayonne.
Hey, Mike.
On the walkway, which is really a great add over here because it's a terrific bird watching area over there. Now, I know there was questions about connecting it to Collins Park. Is this connection still going to go forward?
So the issue with the connection is it's out of everyone's hand on the dais and in the audience. You need to get the Turnpike Authority's approval.
Port
to-
Authority.
Port Authority's approval to get under the bridge. So for now, you'd have to go out to Avenue A, I guess, and walk down and come back in. But I think that's a priority to try and make that happen for the mayor, right?
Well, because I thought that was, it was done.
No, but there's a security issue on the Port
Right.
Authority's
Under the
part
bridge.
about people walking under the bridge.
Yeah.
So that's something at a later date, hopefully, we can facilitate some sort of arrangement that allows for it, but if the Port Authority says this is a security risk, then not much we can do about it. That's their property, they don't want anybody underneath it.
Oh, okay, I understand. Now, was there also talk about a parking underneath the bridge, or?
No, there is public parking to access the walkway on the edge of the
Right, I know, but I
project.
thought
Yeah.
there was also something I read in the paper that would be parking under the bridge, or they were going to,
I think you're talking about the Juliet Street parking lot downtown on the east side, but further down actually a little bit up off of Juliet Street.
oh, okay. All right, so the connection's not done yet?
No, again, it's Port Authority.
Okay, Port Authority, okay, thank you.
Yes. How you doing? Dave Solari, 16 Colonial Drive.
Hey, Dave.
One question here, let's get a couple of questions, I shouldn't just say one. The $65 million that we're going to be bonding it, how are we getting that money to give to them?
So, the way, we'll go out into the market in a competitive process to find a underwriter to lend the money to the city, then they'll lend it to the project. And then that bond will be guaranteed by the city. So it's going to be competitively secured.
And
through
you're
the bond.
paying the interest and everything on that bond too?
No,
not
don't
the
forget, me
taxpayers.
and you are
I know-
together.
I know that.
Them, the
Them.
bad guys over there.
Well, I'm talking to you now.
Yeah.
So,
They're paying that,
Yeah.
not me.
yeah, I know.
Even with my $650,000 payday.
So they'll be paying everything there.
Yes, sir.
The next question, if this belly ups, and you saying it's not going to belly up, things do belly up.
Yeah.
Believe me when I tell you. All right? Who's liable for that $65 million?
Yeah, so I'm not saying it won't belly up. I'm saying,
If it does, let's
No.
let's go if it does.
no,
Let's go that way.
I'm saying we plan for if it does. Like, we didn't plan for it succeeding. We planned for it bellying up, right? That was, because anyone could plan for it succeeding. We didn't plan for that. We planned for bellying up. What happens in bellying up? So history and other transactions across New Jersey show us that the developer, even when they belly up, no one's there, keep paying the taxes because the taxes represent, this debt service, represents such a small part of the carry on a huge asset. It'd be like you have a $100,000 home and you have a $5,000 mortgage. You're going to keep paying, even if you're struggling to make it, you're going to pay the $5,000 because you might lose your home, or the bank that secured your home is going to pay it. So that's the security. And then, because we thought that, well, that is significant and probably all we need, frankly, Mike negotiated a letter of credit in the tune of $65 million, so a bank will step in before they get to us. Those two situations, if all those things fail, and we do have to pay for it, we will effectively take the property, we'll foreclose on it. Now the city of Bayonne will own it, and we'll sell it.
Another piece that we're going to screw
But-
up like we
but,
did the base.
But that's like, yeah, that's the last part, that's after everything else fails.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
You know, we're not good in doing properties. You know that, right?
Well, I mean,
No.
I don't agree.
Because we
I think Bayonne's a great
We
place.
had a big dollar property down there, down the base, that we gave so much for. I don't even want to get into.
You got that property for
into the middle
$1,
of that.
by the way.
All right. The
You-
other
That property
question-
came to you for $1.
Huh?
That
I know,
property
yeah,
was,
we bought it for $1.
And you made a ton of money on
And we gave so much away, too. So
know.
let's not.
you made a lot more than
Let's not
$1.
go that way, because you gave the water deal away, too, and Mr. La Palusa could tell you that one. You know, all right?
Yes, sir.
How much of this, if we do bond this $65 million, all right, how much of it is going to be on our taxes then?
None.
Not one raise of our tax dollars?
No, sir.
Not one?
Not one.
Can I hear that from each one of yous?
Well, they're trusting me to tell them.
Wait. I want to hear this from them, because I don't want them to say later on, well, hey, I didn't say that. How about you? No tax hike on that $65 million?
Dave.
No, I want to hear
Dave, we're
because you...
collectively telling you no. We
Oh,
agree with the
listen, I
professional.
can tell you right now, you guys can lie and lie and lie.
Dave, look,
No.
Dave.
Dave,
And that'll
come on,
be it.
don't
So
come
you
up
know
here and
that,
start
Mr.
accusing us of being
Labalus.
liars, all right?
You know, all right. How much of this, after it's done, will go to the schools? You know,
So the school, because
funding some of the money
Yeah.
to schools.
I don't have that number for you, but the schools will continue to get their share of the land taxes, which is a significant number.
You have no idea.
It's not that I have no idea.
Can you give me like a
Wait, hold on.
figure?
Give us 30 seconds to the genius and with
Yeah,
the
no
computer.
problem.
He'll look it up while you ask your questions.
And the pilot,
Yes, sir.
the pilot program,
Yes, sir.
is it a 30-year pilot?
30-year.
30-year pilot?
Yes, sir.
And how much you going to be paying to the city on each pilot?
So that was the number that we had in our prior, I think it was averaging 3.9 million. How much is, Mike, the school?
6.8 total.
6.8 total what?
Round four goes to the, is unpledged.
How much going to the school?
Well, no, $4 million is the unpledged portion
To the city?
initially.
Okay.
Mike, can you come up to the
Yeah.
microphone with Joe here, please?
But the school portion of the tax rate here is, it's about 35%. So 35% of the land taxes will go to the school board as they would otherwise.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I was watching some of the project there before. Is there any properties being taken away on the opposite side of the studio?
On the other side of Avenue
Yeah, like where the starting point, all those businesses in there. So none of that's being taken, because it looked like, it, you know, the way it was, I don't know if that was being taken away, or, so there's no, that's not going to come up in an
I
amendment?
think the panel that you're talking about, that was facing north, not
Okay, yeah,
south.
like I said, I didn't know which way it was coming from. but-
It was looking out towards the starting point.
Yeah, all right, okay. And I believe that is it. Thank you, and have a great.
Ms. Gadesky, just wait 1 minute. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, Ms. Gadesky.
Sorry, Mr. Baumann, but I found my notes, so maybe you could help a dumb blonde understand that there are no changes?
Now you're calling yourself names, too.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't mean you personally. I meant the system. The way it was done wasn't done
All right.
in an open way, the way
I
it should have
appreciate
been.
your clarifying
All
for me.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. The City of Bayonne Planning Board previously granted 1888 preliminary and final major site approval and minor subdivision approval, blah, 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 blah. As previously approved, the studio complex will be also supported by lighting and grip building, a central utility plant, utility yard, a trash and recycling area, as well as facility yard. As part of the prior approval, 4 subsurface parking structures were proposed to be constructed under the studio development. 1888 Studios is now seeking amended preliminary and final major plan approval to reconfigure the previously approved site layout, eliminate, so they reconfigure, like you said, I give you that, eliminate the previously approved underground parking spaces, structures, eliminate the screening, post-production office building, and eliminate creative office building, and eliminate the central utility plant and associated utility yard. The previously approved stage buildings have been reconfigured in size and location for the use of optimization and better site circulation, blah, blah, blah. So they did take stuff away. They did reconfigure, I'll give you that, but they did take stuff away. So you're saying it still fits with 65 million additional dollars from a French rich financier?
I mean, I understand your point about the French financier guy, but yes, it's still the same, yeah.
Okay, a question, what Mr. Cirillo asked. Board of Ed always gets land use taxes, correct?
Correct.
That's land use. But if it's a pilot, they get nothing additional unless it's written in. So why don't you write something in there to get additional money?
Doesn't actually work that way. The governing body could give money to the Board of Ed if they needed it. They would have to appropriate those dollars. They're not, there is no writing into the document that the Board of Ed gets money. Each governing body has to make a decision with what they do with dollars that enter the budget.
Council?
Let me just clarify. So that's true if it's a residential project. It's, at least if you were asked my legal opinion, you couldn't do it for a warehouse or a facility like this. You can't share the money legally. But at the end of the day, they're the same taxpayers, right? So if the city of Bayonne takes $1 out of their pocket and gives it to the Board of Ed, they have to raise another $1 taxes over here, and they have to do a lot. So it ends up in the same place. Similarly, at the Board of Ed, whatever they adopt their budget for, they get 100% on the dollar, so they're never really compromised.
Okay, one final question. At the special meeting, you all went into closed session, and Mr. Coffey told me it was for negotiations. If you already gave the planning board all the information, why did you have to go into closed session to discuss the I's and the T's?
The planning board had nothing at all to do with the financial agreement, the project labor agreement, myriad other things. The planning board just talking about the site.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the local finance board. Didn't you have to give them all the ins and outs and the details when they approved the redevelopment?
Their meeting was an open session. You could have listed the local finance
I
board.
know, but nobody knew it was coming. That's the problem. We were planning on it, but nobody knew that the date was there, just like the special meeting. We had to run around like a nut. So I'm sorry, Mr. Coffey.
When we went into closed session, it was to talk about the details that have been finalized, like right up to the last couple hours. With the project labor agreement, has nothing really to do with the local finance board or the planning board. You're talking about the local finance board or the planning board?
Well, a combination of both.
Okay, well, the planning board just talking about site. They don't care about the terms of the financial agreement or anything like that, or the RAB. They're just worried about the site itself. Local finance board, as Joe said, they reconfigured. It's 1.5 million square feet of utility here, and they moved stuff around. They still have 1.5 million square feet of utility over here. They moved it around, changed it, and made it look a little bit different, but it's the same project. With respect to that closed session, we were talking with Mr. Hanley and Mr. Baumann, and we're going over potential issues that we had with the developer as to project labor and in terms of the financial agreement. And those negotiations you can't do out here because you don't want to be playing your hand in front of on TV. So that's why we went in there, and it has nothing, the local finance board doesn't care about that either.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baumann.
You're welcome. So I have a question for Mr. Wichiscala. Where are we on this redevelopment agreement?
Council President, the redevelopment agreement is largely finished. We actually just had a couple of remaining items to work through with the redeveloper, specifically pertaining to the nature and extent of some of the improvements that are going to be done by the redeveloper to address some flooding issues down in the Avenue A, West First Street. We are actually not moving on this resolution this evening because we are finalizing the document, which will be made available to the council and the public before that redevelopment agreement comes in for a formal resolution.
Yeah, because the council and myself, I'm speaking for them since I spoke to all of them already, we're a little concerned. We hear the public coming up talking about all the changes that are made. We know how many changes are made, and I don't want to just take somebody's word for it. I want to see that redevelopment agreement before I vote. I've been very public on this dais and all the times that I've been around, and if I don't have that information and enough time to look at it, I'm not voting on it. And I think my colleagues agree with that. Even the PLA, Mr. Kelleher, we want to hear from you tonight, but I would like to see that PLA too, because there's been a lot of moving parts to this whole thing, including with the PLA. So if you want to give your presentation, that's fine. We'd like to hear that. But tonight, I recommend, and the council, I believe, all agreed with me, that We're not going to vote on this because we want more time to review all those paperwork.
Great.
Mr. Kelleher?
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Patrick Kelleher. I'm the Hudson County Building Trades President, but also a business agent, Plumbers Local 24. And Jay, the mayor, Gary, Jackie, Lloyd, Juan, Neil, we thank you for the strong support of the project labor agreement. It was finally signed tonight with the help of the attorney and stuff, my attorney, in getting through. And we made sure that 20% of the Bayonne residents and minority men and women will be on this project. This is the first major project labor agreement, one of the biggest for men and women. I know that woman over there spoke before. When Bayonne union members go to work, they spend money in Bayonne, and the people thrive and stuff like that. That's what it's all about. And they made a commitment to you, the city, about the biggest job fair in Bayonne to get men and women onto these job sites and into the unions and stuff like that. So we have a program out called Project Impact. Commissioner O'Day unfortunately couldn't make it. He spearheaded in Jersey City. He thanks the support that you've given this about union jobs and stuff like that. He's committed to do it through the building trades. We've done a lot of things there. But the importance of this project labor agreement, it makes sure it holds the owner and the contractors accountable to do it 100% union. And we have a commitment from the owner. He didn't get an operator yet, but we make sure, I mentioned, you see Pat Desmond speaking about union labor, that's his concern, it's our concern too, that the facility will be done with Bayonne residents and Bayonne service people and the building trades in Hudson County. So we thank you all for this important thing. I know it's a major project here, but the return that you'll get from the members going to work and stuff like that is very important. And I thank you for your commitment. Thank you. Gary, there's a copy. Gary, there's a copy of the signed PLA. Jay has it, so everything is implemented and stuff like that. So,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Jobs are a major priority for this council and the administration, and all of this is very important, not just the project labor agreement, not just the union jobs, but even the full-time jobs afterwards. All of that is important to Bayonne. Thank you.
Let me say a few words.
Mr. Beneke?
Hi.
Explain your role and your title.
Sure. Thank you very much, Council President. Thank you very much, members of the council, Mr. Coffey, as well as Mr. Calla. My name is Bob Beneke, Beneke Economics. I'm the owner's representative on this project and their financial consultant. We do a lot of different things together with, of course, Hills Cummins, C.C. Lassiter is here as well. I'd just like to fill in some of the blanks with respect to some of the issues with the site plan versus the local finance board application. On September 22nd of 2022, the redeveloper submitted a revised site plan application to the planning board. That application, as I mentioned on January 25th, 3 weeks ago tonight, took the underground parking structures, was actually an underground cavern of parking, and brought it up over land to save approximately $100 million. The $100 million savings was necessitated by the fact that inflation and escalators of costs took over the project, and we had to reconfigure the project to save money. This underground cavern was going below the water surface by about 10 feet. We raised, on average, the elevation of the ground by about 12 to 14 feet, and the cavern had to go down another 10 feet below that. It got very costly, very expensive. So we put the structure above ground, and we moved around the film studio space. All that stage space, all the workshop space, and all the ancillary office space is still up top. Previously, you had approximately 1.79, 1.89 million square feet of rentable space, excluding the cavern. When you took the cavern up top, the same amount of space existed rentable because we had this new structure. And that's how we shifted things around. And now it's actually a little bit larger. It's about 1.5 million square feet of rentable space above ground. That's how this became a thing, if you will. That was on September 22nd. We knew we had to get, and the city knew they had to get, local finance board approval. It's not necessarily an approval, it's actually positive findings. So they don't really approve anything. Well, what they did is they took the application from Mr. Bauman's office, Mr. Hanley, and of course, we were participating, and they reviewed the document, they reviewed the findings, they reviewed all the finances, and they went through everything as Mr. Bauman testified to 3 weeks ago. And everything worked out because the pilot is going to pay for the debt service. In other words, the pilot pays for the principal and the interest on the RAB of $65 million. And the city is protected by the letter of credit first, the special assessment second, and then the in-rem foreclosure, the ability to foreclose on land that's worth, let's say, $900 million, just to pick a nice round number. So that's how the building blocks were done. And no one was deceiving anyone, but on September 22nd, we submitted for the planning board's consideration that site plan, and it was deemed complete, the application. It may not have been voted on, but it was deemed complete. Coincidentally, it was voted on that evening, January 11th, the same evening as the local finance board meeting. So I hope that clarifies things in a little bit of more of a layered format.
So, Mr. Beneke, where are the utility buildings that were changed?
There's no utility buildings because PSE&G and the engineers, because we excavated and eliminated this cavern, we didn't need to have the extra utility building. It was only about 10,000 square feet. It wasn't a lot. That's been eliminated.
Okay.
And we worked with PSE&G and we worked with the engineers because that cavern is totally eliminated. We did add, and I might add, we did add 20 parking spaces. That was requested by Mrs. Calla and Mr. Coffey in the team's office, no problem. I want to remind you that the land mass is just under 58 acres. It's 74 acres of total land, but about 16 acres, give or take, is in the water.
Above ground, right.
And 58 acres is the land mass, of which we're dedicating approximately 6.1 acres back to the city. Yes, about half of it's the waterway walkway that needs to be in compliance with DEP. But of that half, we have a 16-foot wide walkway, not an 8-foot wide walkway, which DEP requires. We doubled it so that you can have, as Mr. Bauman indicated, bicycles and people rollerblading and the like and not bumping into each other. In addition, we have approximately a 2.89 3-acre park, slightly less, that's going to be hopefully someday attached to Collins Park. It certainly can be attached to Collins Park, and that was up on the screen. And then we have the 20 parking spaces as well. And we've committed to all those other things, including an education component at the studios. We'll have a job fair opening up the studios for permanent employees. We'll work with Mr. Keller and the trades union. We subcontract with unions. We have been totally pro-union this whole time since last March, since we started to really get into the ground. So all of those things are covered. In terms of the French financier, every project has to stand on its own. No one's walking around with $1 billion check to write. The financial equity partners in this project, as of today, have invested over $75 million of their own money. There's very few projects that cost $75 million. And there's very few projects that have someone who comes into a town or into a county and spends $75 million of their own money and then ask for site plan approval and then ask for these things because they wanted to hit the market and get these leases going. We do have leads on leases. They will come. Once we're done with our paperwork, we have the retaining wall going in. It may be called something else, but it's a retaining wall of the land, and we have the final cap, as Mr. Bauman indicated, ready to go. We expect that work to be done in early April. 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now. And then we then take a deep breath, make sure we have all our permits in order, and then we're going to go vertical sometime, hopefully, in May or June. That's the plan. And I just want to make sure that I put those layers together for you to add something, at least for the record and for the minutes, if for no other reason. So thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Beneke, one
Sure.
question. Could you expand a little bit on the $190 million annual benefit? It says.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Direct, indirect, and
Sure.
induced. So this
Sure.
way the public will understand.
Sure, absolutely. The average employee there, without the film stars and without the producers, is going to make at least $65,000. That's $65,000. If you multiply that by 2,000 people, is $130 million right there. They then go ahead and spend money at the deli, the Broadway diner, Houlihan's, you name it, whatever the good restaurants are. That then is called indirect spending. Then that diner is going to go out and buy sausage and deli meats and hire extra staff. That's called induced benefits. When you wrap that around, it's about 50% more. Voila, you get about $200 million. The direct benefit is that $65,000 wage going to 2,000 people. By the way, we underestimated that. If you go to some of the other economic studies, I mentioned this on September 7th, you'll see in New York with Lionsgate, you'll see in Bastrop, Texas, you'll see in Toronto, you'll see in Santa Clarita, California, where the estimates are a lot higher. We actually brought them down to be more realistic, and so that when we got to a point like this, we could just say 2,000 times $65,000 per person is $130 million. And then if you think about the spending of that money, the locale of that money, and then what people have to do to actually support that spending, you can see easily where it's at least 50% of that, and voila, you get about $195 to $200 million, and that's on the low side. In addition, we're going to have wood shops. We're going to have film studios that require filmmaking, that require all sorts of other materials. That all is added to it. We excluded that. We excluded any supply purchases. I believe we had $4.5 million for supply purposes to support the 2,000 employees. That's all we included. We did not include all the supply and the material building and the trade buildings off-site. That would be added in a normal situation. We avoided that to give you a good, hard and fast number of $195 million annually once this is built, leased up, and we have our film production running. In addition, and this is really important, 650 to 850 employees will be there full-time as a base employment, security guards, maintenance workers, electricians. Those types of folks will be there all the time. And then as productions come in each one of these 17 stages, you will have your production folks, you'll have your camera crews. Joe mentioned a whole laundry list. Mr. Baumann mentioned a whole laundry list of employees. All of those will come with each one of these productions.
And those are mostly union as well.
Yes, and you also have the Screen Actors Guild, you have the Producers Union, you have all sorts of trades unions as well. And what's going to end up happening here is that we're going to have a viable production lot. It's not a Universal Studio. It's not an amusement park. This is a place of business to actually film and to have animation and to have indoor IMAX type of theaters and filming. So, for example, in the future, when you go to Mount Everest, you're actually going into the Bayonne studio and shooting Mount Everest and shots of Mount Everest in the Bayonne studios. You're not going on site. You may go on site for this or that, but you come back to the studio and you shoot everything using AI, artificial intelligence. And I think that's some of the things that we've talked about at the planning board and over time as well. So that's what's going to happen. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mr. Beneke.
Thank you. If there's any questions, we're glad to answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Wichiscala, is warehousing one of the uses in that redevelopment plan?
No.
Okay.
It's actually specifically prohibited. It's prohibited in the site plan ordinance as well.
Okay. Does anybody on the council have any questions for one of the professionals or about the PowerPoint? Okay. Ms. Gadesky, this will be the last question on the TOGAS, and then we're going to move on.
Yes.
Ms. Medina.
Absolutely. Can that be amended? The warehouses, can that be amended? Yes or no?
Redevelopment plan can be amended by action of the council, yes.
Okay, thank you. And a question for the gentleman that spoke. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. What is different between this studio in Bayonne versus Oceanport and Newark? What's the difference? Thank you.
First off, in Newark, it's a much smaller space, and it's also mixed use. There's a residential component in Newark, and there's also the NJ PAC and its affiliates that have a component part to that. So that's tax exempt, and the residential components like that. Oceanport, Netflix is having a difficult time financing it with state subsidies. And we, have no issues with various state subsidies, but they're having an issue with that. And Netflix is a self-contained studio. This is not a self-contained studio. Maybe two-thirds self-contained. That's what our vision is, meaning that it may be a XYZ, an ABC, an NBC, a FOX type of studio product, but then the rest is going to be run by the management company, by Togus. That's the way we envision it. So those are the big differences. And I just might add, we are into this for probably close to $30 million as a film studio. There is no way we can go back. I mean, there is literally no way we can unwind that or take that juice back. There's no way. So we're committed to a film studio complex. Everyone is in on that. We have committed to it every way to Sunday, including at the local finance board, the planning board, the city council, the mayor's office, your professional team, which has been fantastic, and so on. So.
One more point based on what you said, and Mr. Baumann, maybe you can answer this. Why do you need Bayonne $65 million? Is it because you can't get another investor? What is the reasoning behind us lending you money?
Well, let me have the financial advisor, Mike Hanley, answer that.
Okay. That's my final question, I promise.
Yeah, the 65 million, because of the way it's being financed, reduces the amount of expensive equity in the project. It drives down the cost of funds for the project and makes it feasible.
So there's no partner, no syndication or anything taking place? It's just private investors plus the city of Bayonne? Is there a syndication on the balance needed to build?
So, I mean, there's a significant equity component coming from the equity investors. There will be debt coming from their lenders, and then there is the 65 million that will be publicly offered debt of the city of Bayonne.
Okay, when will you be offering that?
Well, I mean, whenever the whole capital stack is built, sometime this year, presumably.
It would have been so much nicer if we didn't rush through this. I would have got all my questions answered. Thank you.
No problem.
Ms. Medina?
I actually have one.
Okay.
Just to clarify, you brought up, Mr. Beneke, you said that one of the reasons that this site is more attractive than, say, other sites like Newark or the Netflix site is because they are, well, the Newark site is smaller and the next Netflix site has to be in-house, whereas you might be able to have a Paramount movie, a Bravo television show, a History Channel operation all at the same
They're
time.
going to lease space.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct, and plus, on January 25th, I also mentioned the location in terms of a waterfront location near New York City, Staten Island, Newark Bay, the Van Call, and the Bayonne Bridge, which, as you guys have rebuilt it, it's a great feature as well. So all of that adds together to just be a prime location.
Thank you.
For clarification.
Ms. Medina?
Starting with 01, an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, State of New Jersey, approving a financial agreement by and between the City of Bayonne and Togus Urban Renewal LLC for the property identified as Block 332, Lot 3, Block 360, Lot 2, Block 390, Lots 1 and 2, and Block 391, Lots 1 and 2, which was introduced and passed the first reading at a meeting held January 25th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of February 15th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez, giving the ordinance second reading. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
We're going to move to carry.
You're going to motion to carry?
Yeah.
Okay. And second?
Second.
And on the motion to postpone, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
02 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, State of New Jersey, providing for the special assessment of the cost of certain improvements on the property identified as Block 332, Lot 3, Block 360, Lot 2, Block 390, Lots 1 and 2, and Block 391, Lots 1 and 2. The council is now, do you also want to carry this one as well?
We're going to move to carry 2, and we'll do the same for 3.
And on the motion to carry 02, who would second?
Second.
Motion to carry, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And 03 is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, State of New Jersey, authorizing the guarantee of not to exceed $65 million aggregate principal amount of the city's guarantee redevelopment area bonds. Motion to carry.
Move to carry, yeah.
Second.
And on the motion, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
04 is an ordinance of the Municipal Council of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, adopting the Central Constable Hook redevelopment plan for property identified as Block 465, Lot 9, Block 466, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Block 478, Lots 1 and 1.01, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne, which was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held January 25th. It was January 18th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of February 15th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And resolution moved by Councilmember La Palusa, given the ordinance second reading. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance of the Municipal Council of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, adopting the Central Constable Hook redevelopment plan for the property identified as Block 465, Lot 9, Block 466, Lot 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Block 478, Lots 1 and 1.01, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak.
Okay, Ms. Gadesky?
These lot and blocks are killing me. Can someone explain what this is, please? Where
This is
where
the
is this?
This is the Exxon site, Exxon IMTT.
Okay, and what is the plan? What is the actual plan?
Ms. Mack can probably speak to it better, but generally speaking, it's a warehouse development, redevelopment project.
Warehouse?
Correct.
How tall?
She was here, her stuff is still over there.
Nobody knows?
Because it's in the redevelopment plan stage, the site plan is not yet, posted by the redevelopment.
Did this go before the planning board or no?
Yes, this redevelopment plan did go before the planning board.
Okay, so what are you saying it's not ready? How can you vote on something?
What he said, no, what he said is it hasn't been to a stage of site plan approval just yet.
So it still needs consideration by the planning board?
Yes.
Okay, so are you guys
Well,
allowed to
no,
vote on it
no,
if it's?
It's the site plan, again, we are discussing right now the redevelopment plan. That has been already presented in front of the planning board. Planning board has approved it. This, we are now discussing to see if the council will consider this as an area that will be used for warehousing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move.
And a second? Second. And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
I'll move.
And on the resolution for final passage, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
05 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic, which was introduced and passed the first reading at a meeting held January 18th, was published in the Jersey Journal and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of February 15th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez, giving the ordinance second reading. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic. It is adding one restricted parking zone. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
So move.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
Move.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Okay, our first speaker is Ms. Godesky.
It's going to be 30 seconds. First and foremost, a favor, and I don't know if it goes to Mr. Coffey or to what department, but when you're doing an agenda, can you please be consistent and not just put the lot and block, but put the actual address or the name of the company so that I don't have to get up and keep asking and asking and asking? It would make your job a lot easier, and it would make me happy.
I've mentioned it in the past, and we'll do it again.
Yes, you did, but that's the thing, like you mention things
you
and
have
then
to
they don't
keep
get
up on
done.
things.
Make a note, Council President,
Yeah.
please.
Don't worry. I've
Secondly,
plenty of
thank you very much for moving to carry these 4 ordinances, because I have a question. If it's not ready, why did you have the special meeting to introduce? I'd like to know the answer
Because
to
it
that.
was supposed to be ready, and it's not.
That's my question. Like, if it wasn't ready, you know, and you were
Things
going to
happen.
move,
Wait, wait,
and
wait,
you
wait.
were going to, and you were going to move it,
Gail?
you know, I wouldn't be here
Gail,
tonight.
there are 2 items. The thing that wasn't ready was the RDA. Okay? We had an ordinance for the financial agreement. We had an ordinance for the special assessment. We had an ordinance for the guarantee of the $65 million. What we didn't have was a PLA, and what we didn't have was an RDA. And I do think it's fair, and I think they did what you wanted them to do. You want to do this as one big package. So they're saying we wanted to have time to look at this in the context of what was said this evening by Mr. Baumann, who explained that in a, instead of looking at something that's 45 pages thick, that you can't comprehend.
Mr. Baumann and his team did an excellent job. I'm not going to deny that, and he answered all the
So
questions.
then 2 items were still outstanding. The PLA, which was finished today, I think at 6:26 or 5:26 is when they finally sent over the final version, and the RDA, which is not completed as of tonight. So you don't want to leave something out there that I think it's a prudent thing to do, is to put this all off and have another meeting about this. Maybe we can just deal with it specifically alone, and have the RDA in full form available for them to review ahead of time. So there was nothing that wasn't prepared for this. What wasn't done was the RDA and the PLA until earlier today.
Okay, so what you're saying is, originally, you were going to have all these meetings for the public to be informed. You know, this was one of the first that you said at Bayonne High School. So my question is, are you going to start from, you're going to have a special meeting again? If you do have a special meeting again, can you please give us more notice than a day?
I think in this case, we'll be able to do that. We were, again, under the gun to try and get that special meeting set up. We will have advance, if we do this by special meeting.
It's never 1 day advance.
We don't have a newspaper
By
to...
law, you cannot do 1 day advance, so that's
No,
not correct, what you're saying. 1 day
Well,
advance.
you know what I mean,
The law
Gary.
requires
This is
48.
your last question, this is a statement period, remember?
I understand that, but I have questions.
But I wanted to clear up the fact that there was nothing missing from these three ordinances. It was that we didn't have the RDA and we weren't sure about the PLA.
Thank you.
Next, Ms. Medina.
Mr. Kolick? Okay. I want to say this is Mr. Santiago, 74 Cottage Street. Mr. Bradbury. Ms. Paradine.
Good evening, Council. Going to change the tone of the meeting just for a few minutes. My name is Karen Paradine, and I'm here today on behalf of my two children, my daughter Casey, who is here with me tonight, and my son Landon, who is away at college. And I'm here in memory of my husband, Edward Paradine. As some of you may know, Ed took his own life by jumping from the Bayonne Bridge last month. I would like to give you a little glimpse into who my husband was. Ed was a lifelong Bayonne resident. He went to school here, grew up here, and raised his family here. For the 8 months prior to his death, Ed struggled with mental illness. He fell into a deep depression, was anxious, and could not sleep for more than an hour or two at a time. Although 8 months may not seem like a long time, I am sure considering what Ed was going through and the toll it took on him, he must have felt like he was struggling for much longer than 8 months. I firmly believe that when he jumped from the bridge, he felt completely hopeless, helpless, and like he was a burden to his family. Ed was an intelligent man who had a loving family, a successful career, and many friends. He was a longtime Little League coach and loved watching the young boys he coached flourish, not only on the baseball field, but in life. Above all, Ed's children were his pride and joy. He was like any other person in this room until his brain betrayed him, and he felt like he had no other option than to take his own life. Ed was not a man who would do something without thinking things through. However, on the fateful day when he took his own life, I know in my heart he felt like there was no other way out. My goal in being here today is to advocate for either fencing or suicide deterrent netting to be installed on the roadway side of the Bayonne Bridge. I do not understand why neither of these were installed at the time the bridge was raised and then reopened in 2019. Once the bridge was raised from a drop of 151 feet to 215 feet, a fall from that height practically guarantees death. Why a high fence was put on the walkway side and not on the roadway side is baffling to me and to just about everyone else I have talked to about this issue. After Ed's death, my son Landon started a petition on change.org to have a fence or netting installed on the roadway side of the bridge. He has received an outpouring of love and support for this project from many people, not just from Bayonne, but from all over the country. I am so proud of Landon and truly hope that his petition makes a difference. The Port Authority approved the installation of a higher fence and suicide prevention netting on the George Washington Bridge in 2017. Right now, there is a temporary fence and netting on the roadway side of the GW. From reports and articles I have read, this netting has saved countless lives. The Golden Gate Bridge in California is also in the process of installing suicide prevention netting. Ed was not the first person to take his life by jumping off of the Bayonne Bridge, and it saddens me to say that he probably will not be the last. Although I know the city of Bayonne has no control over the Port Authority, I implore you to reach out to the Port Authority
It's okay.
and request that they move forward with the installation of either a fence or netting on the roadway side of the bridge. This is an issue that is long overdue. How many more people have to die on the Bayonne Bridge before something is done? Had fencing or netting been installed when the bridge was raised in 2019, I have no doubt that my husband would be alive today. To quote the president of the support group Coping After Suicide, research shows that if you erect bridge barriers, it does decrease the rate of suicide and the likelihood that an individual will take their own life by jumping off a bridge. It is very uncommon for them to seek out an alternative substitute means. So what the barrier does, it makes it much less likely that the person is going to try to kill themselves by any means. Although I know that there has also been talk about putting signage with the suicide prevention hotline number and possibly an emergency phone on the bridge, it is highly unlikely that a person who is suicidal and is already on the bridge would take advantage of those options. These people are already completely desperate at their breaking point and think they have no other option but to take their own life. The George Washington Bridge has signs on the pathway urging people considering suicide to seek help, and there are call boxes that dial a suicide hotline. But Dr. Richard T. McKeon, the head of the Suicide Prevention Branch of the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, said that such phones should be considered a complement to, not a substitute for, a barrier. There are people who are just not going to use the phone if it's there, he said. Some might, but many won't. I myself strongly believe that the only reliable options to prevent suicides from the Bayonne Bridge is for either an inward curving fence or suicide prevention netting to be installed. In closing, I would once again ask that the City of Bayonne support this effort to install either high curved fencing, suicide prevention netting, or both on the roadway side of the Bayonne Bridge. I have no doubt that such efforts will save lives. If even one family can be saved the agony and intense grief and pain our family is going through right now, if even one life can be saved, the efforts and the cost involved will be worth it. My husband's life was worth something. Everyone's life is worth something. Thank you for your time and consideration.
We're very sorry for your loss, Ms. Paradine, and we,
Thank you.
as a council, the city, the mayor, we all are very much in favor of the inward fence and netting as well. We actually brought this up at our last council meeting as well.
Okay.
So we're going to do everything in our power that we can to get the Port Authority to install those safety fences.
I mean, I know the Port Authority is having their meeting on, what was the day, Casey? March 16th,
Yes.
and I'll be at that meeting, and hopefully the City of Bayonne could do something to send a letter, anything, just
March
to...
16th.
Yes.
Ms. I appreciate beyond words the strength it took for you to come here and say what you said tonight, and obviously we are all very sorry for your loss. As the council president said, last month we did draft a letter, and I understand that letter is prepared and ready, and what I'd like to do, if you're willing, is would you have your son submit to all of us, email us a copy of that petition so that we can include it with that
Sure.
and our sternly worded letter?
And of course, we'll all sign it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Paradine, I'd like to point out to you also, I'm very, very sorry for your loss, and I know it's tremendous for both you and your children, but I also want you to know that the city is also dedicated to increase our efforts with mental health. And so there's a tremendous amount of people here. Mrs. Kavanaugh, Suzanne Kavanaugh is spearheading that for us. A tremendous amount of effort is being put into so that your husband doesn't feel that he's in despair and so that there is someone to turn to. And so perhaps in the future, when those efforts get going, you might lend us a hand with that.
I sure would appreciate that, and yes, of course I would. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. To send the petition, is the information just online?
To all our email addresses, if he wants to come in person with a paper copy, we'll meet him and we'll make copies
Okay.
ourselves.
I
Whichever
mean,
is
I have
easier.
extra paper copies of this, what I read to you as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my information. You can reach out to me
Okay.
tomorrow, and then I'll connect with you to
Okay.
get.
Do you just want one of these? I printed a bunch of them just in case, but, okay.
Thank you. And then
Thank
give me a
you.
call tomorrow so
Okay.
we can talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Mr. Solari?
Dave Solari, 16 Colonial Drive. We're going to be going back a while now. I brought this up a few times, and I'm just hoping maybe we could bring it to the planning board and the zoning board. When they go in for buildings, that they should put the parking in automatically, because they don't do that, all right? You have to pay an extra $100, an extra $125.
Residential buildings, you mean, right?
Yes,
Okay,
the
okay.
residential buildings, ones that, all the high rises that are going up, okay? And nobody pays for them, all right? I did talk to Councilwoman Nadrowski when she was the president, and they said that they were going to do the areas and ticket them, you know. Same cars are there all the time. I could watch them come out of all different buildings, and they just go in their car and they park right back outside again. You don't have to, you know. After 6 o'clock, you could park in any municipal lot, and you could go in any municipal lot all day long and pay the $5 for the day or whatever. All right? So we have to really look into this. Put this in there and say they have to do this. Because by not doing it, you're going to have more of a parking problem. Prospect Avenue, that's your area. You know what it was like for me to try and get a spot there one night? Forget about it. I mean, I had to park where I had to go park 5 blocks away. That is ridiculous. You know, I'm sorry, I'd never go into that area again. But, yeah.
There is no significant development on Prospect Avenue at this
Yeah.
point.
Not yet. But, you know, but we have to start doing it, because if we don't do it, it's just going to build up, and you're not going to find any spots, and we have that problem. You go on 22nd and DeMonte. That's one area that's always there. Same thing. Same cars. No meter lady. You know, Mrs. Drowsky said that was going to happen. Maybe she did send it over. Maybe, you know, up in the front office there, told them don't do it maybe. I don't know. We have to start doing it. Put meters there. That was a loading zone. It's no more a loading zone. It's a building. It's a residential building. It's a high-riser now. You don't need a loading zone there. Put meters there now. The guy at that building extended a fence out there, you know, after everything was done and approved. You know, I wish I could do that on my property. The city would be down there tomorrow at my house. You know, but really, I mean, I don't want to come here and sound like a broken record. I just, you know, I mean, we have to say when it's enough. You know, 46th Street, they're going to be putting a restaurant in there. All right? Hey, I love more restaurants. You know, I didn't get this way for nothing. You know, believe me when I tell you. You know. So, I mean, but where are you going to start parking if these people don't park in their garages? You've got to start forcing them to go in there. And if you don't start it from the new projects now, forget it.
We're working on that now, but
Yeah, well-
you want to explain a little bit more about
Well,
that?
we have to put it in there.
Within the body of RDAs going forward, we're negotiating with the developers today that, you're right, Dave. The bottom line is people, if the parking's there, but they have to pay $100, $125, or $155 a month, they're not paying it, $200 a month. They're not paying it, they're parking on the street. Going forward, that's an issue we're dealing with. Part of it, the first aspect of it was when we changed how We didn't allow people to get the parking permits if you had a new apartment. And this will, going forward, also address the issue you're talking about.
They find a way to beat the system.
Any system you build, there are people out there that beat it, David, you know.
Somebody, absolutely. Somebody's out there to beat the system. But look at that area there, change that loading zone, put meters there. It frees up everything. At least you could go into the deli and to Benanti's Deli and go in there instead of double parking all over the place and then trying to get a bigger ticket. You know, it'll open up a lot of spots. Thank you, and everybody have a good night.
You too.
Okay. Moving on.
Is that it
Yes.
for speakers? Okay.
That's it for speakers. 06 is an ordinance for introduction. It is an ordinance of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, adopting an amended and restated redevelopment plan for the property located at 69-71 New Hook Road, block, which is known as Block 416, lots 1 and 2, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne, and a resolution fixing March 15th and the Dorothy and Harrington Council Chambers as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. It's moved by the Council President. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Officers' report is moved by the council as a whole. It's a resolution ordering the following communications to be received and filed. It covers C1 through C5. Any questions on communications? And on the communications, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Officers' report is a resolution moved by the council as a whole, ordering the following officers' reports to be received and filed, and any resolution incorporated within to be adopted. It covers OR 1 through OR 2. Any questions on OR 1 or 2? And on the officers' report, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Consent agenda is moved by the council as a whole. It is a resolution ordering the following resolutions to be adopted. It covers CR 1 through CR 20. Here we go. Any questions?
Yes. CR 6, CR 8, CR 9, CR 12.
Hold on. 8 and 9. I have to shuffle through.
6, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14.
Okay, actually CR 9 is coming off. It doesn't have a resolution. Yes. You said 12?
12, 13, and 14. As you say, CR 16 or 17, should I wait for that?
God bless you.
No, no, we'll take whatever CRs you want out. 16 and 17?
12, 13, and 14.
Okay.
Anything else? That's it.
Okay.
12, 14.
That one's off. What the hell did I just do? Okay, on the remainder of the consent resolutions, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye. CR6 is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an extension to an access agreement between the City of Bayonne and PPG Industrial for a limited purpose of performing soil and groundwork environmental investigation and performing environmental remediation work at the property comprised of Block 383, Lot 1 and 2, and Lot 4 through 8, and Block 384, Lots 1 and 2,
more commonly known as West First Street, Dennis Collins Park, for a period of 1 year commencing January 1st, 2023.
I thought this remediation was done.
Remediation requires follow-up and requires the entity that does the remediation to do things that the site remediation individual requires. So that another year of, we might even extend it another year if they don't see the right results of the testing, then they'll go back even more. But this is a pre-existing agreement. We already have one. This just extends it another year so they can go on, do their tests and do their analysis.
Is it safe for the kids in the park, et cetera?
It's got to be safe because they allowed it to open up.
But it's not safe.
No. What this does, they wouldn't allow them to open up the park if the DEP didn't feel it was safe. But there are subsequent obligations on the part of the remediator to ensure that the remediation is working and the soil, whatever is impacting the soils is lessening.
Okay, and just, I'm sorry, but CR5, I know you already approved it, but aren't we the owner of daycare nursery? Why do we have to give it right away to ourselves?
Well, because we're not the ones operating it. They are.
Okay.
And it's a totally separate entity, and they want to put awnings up so that when it rains or if it's really hot, they have a place to protect themselves.
Hope they're entitled to UEZ funds.
I'm not sure.
CR8,
Hold on, I have to take a vote on
Oh, no.
CR6. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
CR8.
no, CR12.
Well, I got to go in order. You said CR.
I didn't mean to say CR8, I'm sorry.
Well, I have to read it out because I pulled it out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's authorizing the purchase and installation of emergency lights, sirens, and computer equipment in 18 current and new police vehicles from Elite Vehicle Solutions under State Contract 17 Fleet 00749 for a total purchase price of $488,038.38. And it's moved by the council as a whole. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
CR12 is approving the beautification for the Bayonne program to maintain sidewalks and streets and authorizing the UEZ coordinator to submit an application to the New Jersey UEZ Assistance Fund for an amount of $794,510.
Okay, over the weekend, I went to get my taxes done at H&R Block. Director Cotter, I sent you a video. This is beautification. What are we doing about the current state of Broadway and the garbage, especially on the weekends? It seems to happen on the weekend. It's disgusting. I sent you that video. That was early in the morning on a Sunday. We're building $1 million and millions of dollars worth of property, and we expect people to come to live, work, and dine in this town with the disgusting filth. What are we going to do about it? Is this money going to go towards hiring people to give tickets to businesses and residents that aren't taking care of their property? What are we doing with this $794,000? Can someone please answer me? Oh, Jackie's here. Hi, Jackie.
Jacqueline Farber, UEZ Coordinator. Hi, Gail. Nice to
Hi.
meet you. So all that money, it is towards to beautify, to clean the sidewalks and the street corners on a daily basis from Monday to Friday. Now, if you were speaking about the weekend, I would have to then speak to the workers and then the union to let them work the weekends.
So wait, who's paying them now? Because they're out there early on Monday through Friday doing their job. But who's paying them now? Is the city of Bayonne, where are we getting that money from?
I do believe the city of Bayonne is paying them.
Okay, so now we're switching their
I'm taking-
payroll?
The UAZ will be taking their salaries, yes.
Okay, and this is the total salary, $794,510?
For 7 workers, yes.
For 7 workers?
No. Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
for the whole, I mean,
This is not
portion of
just
that
for
is,
salaries.
yes, I'm so sorry.
Because
Portion-
it says beautification, so a
Yes.
portion is salaries.
Yes.
What's the balance? What?
That's to purchase 2 vacuums that are meant to clean the sidewalks, and a vehicle for the, an additional vehicle for the UEZ so they can take out the garbage. And then.
To remove all the muck and gum that's on all the sidewalks, when we
Because-
spent a lot of money, what do you call it, with the power wash, it did terrible work.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It
Yes,
was
so-
terrible the last time we did it.
Yes, so this particular vacuum that I want to purchase will specialize to pick up the gunk and the small particles in the sidewalks.
And what about deputizing these workers to give tickets to businesses?
That's out of my hands. I would have to speak to DPW.
But I really think we need people out on the streets on the weekends. You know, I know a lot of you got summer houses and aren't really in Bayonne a lot on the weekends. However, take a ride and check it out. It's disgusting. Thank you.
Gail, as the coordinator, I will take that suggestion, and I will drive down the weekends and just take a look at what you're trying to see, okay?
It's horrible.
Okay.
Thank you,
You're
Jackie.
welcome.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
I just want to say one thing. I don't know who you're referring to as summer houses in February, why would we be down the shore and all that stuff. I, for one, don't have one, so I don't know who you're referring to, but the comment is unnecessary, and I vote aye.
CR 13 is also moved by the council as a whole. It is approving the promotion for the UEZ Bayonne Business Program to promote, highlight the UEZ businesses within the city with events and marketing advertisement, and authorizing the UEZ coordinator to submit an application to the New Jersey UEZ Assistance Fund for the amount of $47,700.
Okay, again, Jackie, can you explain this? Because now we don't have a home newspaper, we have everything online. How do you plan on doing the advertising and marketing for events?
Advertisement will probably be with Riverview, River Observer, that they do social media online. As well, I work with a tap into Bayonne.
So everything's going to be online. And what about the people
And
that
then
don't have access?
As well as the Jersey Journal, which is not online.
And what about the people that don't have access? Do you plan on putting posters and flyers and banners out like we
Yes.
previously did?
Yes,
To let merchants know and residents know of
Yes.
special events?
yes.
Okay. Any events coming up? I think there is.
Which one are you?
Now's your opportunity.
Thank you. All right, what I have for this, we have,
The chili cook-off, February 24th, St. Vinny's?
that would be the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, but you're working in coordination, the City of Bayonne, the UEZ, and the,
Volunteering my time.
but all three are supporting it, and that's what's on the flyer out online. So
Yes,
you
but-
are a part of
Volunteering
the
my time.
conglomerate.
That's how I'm part of it, volunteering my time, yes. But what we have, what a part of this grant is the car show, and 13,000 of that would also go to the hometown fair. And then I do believe our sidewalk sale.
Okay, just a note, maybe you want to let Council President know these dates in advance so he can make the announcement at the council meetings as they come up. Just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Madeline, C14 is say CR 16 and 17. Do we discuss it now, or do we wait till 16 and 17?
Did I pull 16 and 17?
You say CR 16 and R 17.
No, CR 14 is off, and it's replaced by R 16 and R 17.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'll wait.
R1 is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to agreement number CY 22039 with Hoplite Communications LLC for 5G and other telecommunication consulting services extending the same for a 2-month period commencing January 1st and ending February 28, 2023, for no additional cost to reappoint Peter Lupo, Esquire of Hoplite, as a consultant to provide the aforementioned telecommunications consulting services. It's moved by the Council President. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R2 is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to the agreement number CY 22038. Okay, come on up.
Just a question, why are we hiring outside vendors when we have Verizon, Optimum, and all those entities that could help us do all this with the 5G? Is this specialized?
This is exactly, we hire this guy to deal with Verizon and everybody like that
Okay.
as they come in. Those telecommunications carriers have an incredible lobby, and they are just shoving this stuff down municipalities' throats. And Hoplite and other entities like that essentially advocate on behalf of the municipality to rein the telecommunication companies.
Got it, thank you.
Hi, ma'am. I know we're going to go out of order and let you speak. Usually we have a sign-up sheet. You sign up, so if you can just come up and state your name and address, please. You have, we usually give 5 minutes to speak.
Dorothy Rose Forgione, 371 Avenue A, Bayonne.
Go ahead, Ms. Rose.
Yes, I wanted to speak about, well, the taxes, like, is there any chance with all the buildings coming up in Bayonne, all the entities, is there any way that that could help the homeowners to lower their taxes? Because Mayor Davis, like a few years ago when I spoke to him, he said that would be happening when the city debt got lowered.
We take our taxes, we do a budget, and we try and stabilize the taxes so that they don't go up really, really high. But
'Cause
each
mine
year
have
we
been-
have to.
Mine have been going up every year,
Well,
even when I
so
go
have
to the
mine.
county
I
and fight them.
understand, but everything's gone up, especially even with COVID. Everything went up. So I'm not making excuses for it. I'm just saying that there are occasions where the taxes do have to go up to pay these expenses.
And the other issue was the parking permits, because I did have the ticket dismissed, but my part of town, you have to have a parking permit, and...
Could you just put the microphone down a little bit or speak more into it?
Yes, my
Thank you.
part of town, you have to have a parking permit, but there are many areas, I have a friend that lives downtown on Second, he doesn't have to have a permit. And other people like in that downtown area. And now I just renewed mine like 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to have to renew again in April, after getting a ticket that I did fight and got dismissed. So I don't think it's fair that, if you're a tax-paying citizen, that you should have to pay, for the permit, or at least if you do, you should have at least a year before you could renew it. I don't think you should have to renew it in a couple of months. They said I have to renew it back in April.
Yeah, they're renewable each year. It's
Well,
for
I just
1 year.
renewed 2 months ago, though, because I wasn't aware mine expired because my car was downtown parked, and I just got my car.
Right, but they run April to April. They're April to, it's 365 days. That's the date that it starts for the year. So I understand you didn't renew yours until 2 months
No,
before.
because my car wasn't parked up on
Right.
16th where I live, but I think you should get a full year. But I don't, 2 years ago, you didn't even have to pay before the pandemic. You just, as a citizen, that you pay these high taxes, I don't think you should have to pay for these parking permits, or make it uniform, make everyone in the city of Bayonne have to pay and get these, not just make certain part of town and then other parts don't have to. I don't think that's fair. Why is this person exempt? I'm not, and now I have to pay, and then in 2 months I have to pay again, when I don't even get a full year, The taxes are high enough, I think. I don't think that's right, and they keep going up, and no matter what they build around here, the taxes still, they don't get stabilized, None of it benefits the property owners.
I think we would differ with you. It could go up even higher if we didn't have the money coming in from some of the development.
We've taken in about $80 million over the past 8 years or so, and we've knocked out 12 to 14, maybe $16 million in indebtedness that we had. I had a conversation with people from Oak Street a couple months ago. I think, Neil, you were at that meeting, and this was brought up. We have all this development, and the taxes don't seem to be going down. Well, the analysis would be if we didn't have all of this development, the taxes would be atrocious. It would make it unlivable here. Without that additional revenue to the city, your tax bill would actually be much higher, and you'd have less service. We'd still have debt. It would be a horror show. So the money that we took in through all this development did offset increases in taxes. It's silent though. You wouldn't know unless an analysis.
Because I thought they were given tax breaks, the developers, so therefore I didn't think.
Everyone thinks that they pay no taxes. They do pay a sum. It's called a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes. But for the fact that we offer those pilots, those developments wouldn't have taken place. And the pilot allows for the developer to only pay the city of Bayonne and 5% that goes to the county, that portion of the taxes. It essentially excises the amount that would be normally attributable to the school. The school doesn't get harmed because the school sets a tax levy, and then if they say we need $50 million, the town has to tax to the tune of $50 million to pay the tax levy for the school. So we took this money in payment in lieu of taxes over the past 8 years, money that otherwise we wouldn't have had, because the amount of taxes, I think there was an analysis done, it might have been about $4 million or $6 million in real property taxes, because there was either vacant land or land that was not being used, let's say like C.J. Murphy's or the Bayonne Plumbing. Those were just non-productive buildings. Resnick's had gone into tax foreclosure, so these buildings went from being non-performing assets to being performing assets.
Well, I just feel that when they were reviewed, mine went up, other people's didn't go up, they went down, so.
I agree that taxes going up is a horrible thing, and it's all across the state of New Jersey. You're right.
Yes. There should be some type of a break, though, like say you don't have children in the school system, or not that I don't have that, or senior citizens or something like that. They should have some kind of, break.
That would have to be done on a statewide basis. The state of New Jersey is our legislature sets how taxes are going to be apportioned and appropriated. So if the state of New Jersey, they do have senior freezes and other benefits. The argument about I don't have kids in the school system is one that's been talked about for years, because we use our property tax system to fund our schools. Other states don't do it that way. They have special taxes, ad valorem taxes, that if you have kids in the school system, you get taxed extra. But Jersey doesn't do it that way. That's at the state level. That's not something we can control.
Ms. Rose, could you wrap up what you were going to say?
Well, that's basically, and then the parking permit, I felt that's not a fair thing for certain residents, and, say if you renew, I shouldn't have to come back in a month to renew again.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but they have to stick by that expiration as well, so.
Because this never was, like, if this part of town doesn't have to do it, it's not really that necessary, I feel. Why bill somebody for something? We pay enough, so I didn't think that parking permit wasn't necessary. Give somebody a plaque to put in their window, in my opinion, is plenty, like I do for my driveway,
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to doing it, but I don't think that it should be a ritual. We have enough to worry about, I feel.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving forward, R2 is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to agreement number CY 22038 with Integrated Microsystems, Inc. for information technology, computer systems, and network administration procurement services, extending the same for 2 months, commencing January 1st through February 28th, for an amount not to exceed $15,000. Who'd like to move it?
Move it.
Second.
Any questions on R2? And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R3 is authorizing the execution of an amendment to agreement number CY 22037 with Integrated Microsystems, Inc. for information technology, computer systems, and network administration and support services, extending the same for 2 months commencing January 1st through February 28th for an amount not to exceed $8,500. Who'd like to move it?
Move it.
Second.
And on the resolution, any questions on R3? On the resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R4 is authorizing the execution of an amendment to agreement CY 22015 with Millennium Strategies LLC for grant writing and management services, and it's extending the contract for 2 months commencing January 1st through February 28th for an additional amount of $11,000, making the total contract not to exceed $77,000. It's moved by Councilmember Weimer. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
Madeline, I have a question on R5 when you're done.
Okay. R5 authorizes the mayor and city clerk to enter into a temporary access and indemnification agreement between the city of Bayonne and 9 Porte Urban Renewal LLC to temporarily access real property owned by the city of Bayonne in the borough of North Arlington in order to determine the precise location and depth of the city of Bayonne's aqueduct and provide additional data requested by the Bayonne's consulting engineer in order to determine whether protective measures may be needed with respect to the proposed easement. It's moved by Councilmember Carroll. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
And Ms. Godesky has a question.
Didn't we discuss this a while ago? Wasn't this going to take place with the big plan or doing
That
the
was-
master plan all over again, et cetera?
No, that was the actual aqueduct plan, because our aqueduct is 100 years old or whatever.
Right, right.
This is a property owner or developer / property owner in North Arlington that wants to traverse over our property. And before they can do that, we need to know how far down our aqueduct is and what, if anything, they have to do in order to protect our aqueduct if they're going to do something where they're going across our land. So this isn't the exact case, but they own a property here, ours is here, they want to go from this property to this property. So they're going to have to go over our property, which is
And
okay with...
the agreement will have if any damage is done to our,
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is a concern, a very big concern of ours.
thank you.
And on R5, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R6 is amending Resolution 22-12-14074, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Christopher Adams of the law firm of Greenbaum, Rose, Smith, and Davis, LLP, for professional legal services in furtherance of the Regulatory Commission's issues involving the state of New Jersey for a period commencing January 12, 2022, and ending March 30th, 2023, to increase the same in the amount of $10,000, thereby making the total contract amount not to exceed $27,500. And it's moved by Council President La Palusa. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
Any questions on R6? And on that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R7 is a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into an agreement with Chi Statistics Insurance Partners, LLC, doing business as Statistic Insurance Partners, LLC, for professional risk management and insurance broker services for a period of 1 year commencing January 1st, at a risk management fee paid directly by the New Jersey Intergovernment Insurance Fund, but shall not exceed 3% of the city's New Jersey JIF premium assessment for 2023. Who'd like to move it?
Move it.
Second.
Any questions on R7? And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R8 is authorizing and directing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine whether the property located at 21-29, 35, and 37 West 25th Street, which is identified as Block 183, Lots 5, 6, and 8.01, as shown on the official tax map of the city, constitutes an area in need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law.
Ms. Gadusky.
Two things. Why are two different addresses and places lumped together? Shouldn't they be separate? Just a thought. And for 431, 433 Broadway and 435, 437 Broadway, where is that? Is that on Sumac?
Are you,
It-
you're
it's-
talking about the next one? or
Yeah,
not?
we're on
Oh,
R8.
you're on what one?
R8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well, yeah.
Same type of thing, though. The bottom line is, it's properties that are fairly contiguous to each other. And
Where is that? That's by the, across from McDonald's? Is that where this is?
it's where the Forum, Nautilus Forum is.
Yeah, and we're across from McDonald's and Teddy's and Teddy's
No,
place?
it's further west. Where Nautilus Forum is, and then the parking lot that's to the west towards Avenue C.
Okay, why would that be an area of redevelopment, in need of redevelopment?
There's,
This is just a preliminary step instructing the planning board to do an investigation to determine if in fact it is an area in need of redevelopment. And it'll depend on what that study turns out to be. If there is a recommendation, there will be a planning board hearing in that regard. And then ultimately, the decision on whether to declare it an area in need of redevelopment, and this would be a non-condemnation area, comes back to the council.
It just doesn't make any sense. We're making all these areas in need of redevelopment up when they're viable businesses. So to me, it just doesn't make any sense. You're looking for areas. Look on Broadway, look at the bridges, look at the roads. Those are in need of redevelopment. Thank you.
Okay, and R8, who'd like to move it?
So move.
And a second? And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R9 is directing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine whether the property located at 431-433 Broadway, 435-437 Broadway, 10-12 West 20th Street, and 11-13 West 19th Street, which is identified as Block 220, Lots 18, 23, 24, and 25, and 26, as shown on the official tax map of the city of Bayonne, constitutes an area in need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. Who'd like to move it?
Move it.
Second.
Question?
I guess it's the same question, Council President. We're lumping addresses together and not giving any specific information as to why this may be considered an area in need of redevelopment.
a request has obviously been made by
Who makes the requests on
developers
this?
do.
A developer, aha, okay. So more pilots, more pilots, more pilots.
but
We got a
this-
large
this-
surplus of cash.
Gail,
We don't need
all-
pilots.
All this is a request for a determination. It doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't obligate the city to anything. It's just an area in need study.
Okay, my question pertaining to these, is the owner of the existing property notified that we, the city of Bayonne, is looking at this area as you said, an area that might be in need of redevelopment? Is the owner of that existing property notified that we're doing this? That a developer wants to come in and knock it down and build?
No, wait. A developer doesn't necessarily want to come in and knock it down. If I have a piece of property on Broadway, I used to have my office at 420 Broadway, and it's a developer wants to develop on that site, that probably enhances the value of my property. Maybe I don't want to sell, but if I want to sell, and all of a sudden there's a developer there who says, I want to put these 4 lots together, 420, 422, 424, 426 all together and develop something, as a property owner, that puts me in a good position because I know this guy's interested in my property, and without my property, he can't do it. So that property owner, we don't do condemnation in Bayonne. We don't do the condemnation type. So it's non-condemnation. It's up to the developer to go to the individual property owners and say, I'd like to buy your place in order to facilitate a development.
But do they know, does the property owner know that we are thinking about looking at this area in need of redevelopment before you even approve the go-ahead? That's my question. Just like when something's coming up in zoning, doesn't the people around the area get a letter saying they're having a zoning meeting or a planning meeting regarding this specific property so that you could be a part of it? I mean, it's common sense. And you're lumping all these addresses together, guys. It doesn't make any sense. We have a large surplus of cash on hand, and we're still giving pilots out. And Mr. La Palusa, you know how you feel about pilots. I think enough is enough, as Chuchy Eleanor would say. You know, I mean, it doesn't make sense. Listen, it's not ballroom dancing anymore, Jay, it's tap dancing.
Just thought Chuchy Eleanor was a good one. I like that.
Just to state for the
But
record.
we're not in the ballroom. We're at the dance studio tapping our feet because it's getting frustrating. You know, it's 9:30 and I'm still here asking questions.
So just to state for the record here, the property owner did make this request to the city.
Okay, so is there any way you guys could like put a little note, property owner requested on these things so I don't have to come up here and lose my voice the next day and be wired all night?
No, we don't typically, we do not typically do that, and, you know, the council is authorized to make determinations whether they want
You
the
don't have to
planning
give the
board
property owner's
to look.
name, just,
Yeah, well, we certainly wouldn't put the property owner's name on it, but I'm not even sure what the relevance is. At this stage of the game, and again, as Mr. Coffey said, when we do our area in need studies, these are non-condemnation areas, so it does not come with the power of eminent domain whereby a property owner would not be aware of it and could find themselves with their property being taken. And in fact, during the process, specific requirement before it goes to the planning board is notice to that property owner as well.
thank you. What one was that, 9?
9, yeah. And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R10 is directing the planning board to reopen and consider amendments to the amended and restated scattered sites redevelopment, New Jersey Transit 34th Street Station, Block 404, Lots 1, 2, and 3, Blocks 408, Lots 1 and 2, which is dated March 5th, 2019. Would like to move it.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions on R10? Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Aye. Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R11 is designating Duke Realty Bayonne Development LLC as the redeveloper of the property, which is identified as Block 465, Lot 9, Block 466, Lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Block 478, Lots 1 and 1.01, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne, designating Duke Realty Bayonne Development LLC as the redeveloper of the property and authorizing negotiation of a redevelopment agreement. Who would like to move?
So moved. Second.
Any questions on R11? No, she's too busy talking. Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R12 is designating a portion of the property located at 250 East 22nd Street and designating a portion of Block 419, Lot 1, as a non-condemnation area of need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, and authorizing and directing the planning board of the city of Bayonne to prepare a redevelopment plan. Who'd like to move it?
Move it.
And second? Any questions on R12?
Is that by Mark Harlem?
No, that's on the east side, way east.
Okay, I got you, I know where, okay, got you.
Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R13 is consenting to the change of ownership of, wait a minute, let's, proper wordage here. Consenting to the change in ownership of Parkview Realty Urban Renewal to LLC pursuant to the terms of the financial agreement authorized by ordinance number 020-440 dated August 19, 2020, and the redevelopment agreement authorized by ordinance, should be resolution 20-09-23058 dated September 23, 2020. Who'd like to move it?
Second.
Any questions on R12? And actually, it's R13, I'm sorry. Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R15 is approving emergency temporary budget number 2 in the calendar 2023 municipal budget.
Move it.
Second.
Question?
Yes, when's the deadline for this?
What do you mean the deadline?
It's not to exceed 390,000, so my question is, how are we going to pay for this? Where's the money coming from?
The temp,
We're in 14.
Oh, I'm sorry.
and on R14, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R15 is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into an agreement for professional engineering services for a hydraulic study for flood mitigations to T&M Associates for an amount not to exceed $390,000 for a period of 1 year commencing January 1st. It's moved by the council president. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
Yeah, that's the question.
Question?
Yes, $390,000. Is this part of the master plan flood litigation down First Street?
No, this is a general hydraulic study of the city to figure out where our issues are across the board. You might have flood water down on First Street, but it could be originating on 57th Street. So this is going to be a complete study of the entire city of Bayonne to figure out where our water is coming from, where it's stopping, where there are bottleneck points.
Oh, like I said, it's because of all the leaves that everybody's pushing down the sewers.
It's much greater than that.
All right, well, it's in part, let's put it that way.
And it's going to be paid through the ratepayers, through our utility.
Water and sewer? Are waters going up again?
No, I didn't say that it was going to go up again because of this. That 390 is coming from, it probably come from the rate stabilization fund, or it'll be funded by the concessionaire, and then we'd have to repay it back.
We have a lot of surplus, I believe, in our kitty. Can't we use some of that money to help pay for this? We have a surplus for the... Don't you have any unrestricted funds from ARP or anything that we could use?
Not for this.
We're paying enough water.
It's not for this. This is going to be this is part of the long-term fix. The long-term fix is a frightening number. We've talked about this. The long-term control plan is hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is the beginning of that step.
And on R15, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye. For R16, we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation from Ms. Suzanne Mack, our city planner.
She's going to do 16 and 17. She can do them together, right?
Good evening. I am here tonight to present our applications to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection under their requirements for Bayonne to apply for grants that we are eligible for. We are required to not only pass a resolution from the municipal council, but we are required to have a public hearing. It has been our past practice to do that as part of the city council meeting. Notices were noticed by the city clerk that we would have this meeting this evening in case anyone wanted to comment. There was also an opportunity through March 1st when our application goes in for the public to have public comments. They may see this tonight and may want to comment. New Jersey DEP has extended their public participation requirements this year. So there has been specific attempts to reach the public to see their desires in these issues. I wanted to comment, I came before you 2 years ago on the multi-park project, which was 28th Street Parks and Cottage Street. I came before you last year on the Bayonne Pool project, and we were successful in those applications to get funding, which through Director Cotter's office, he has been successful in getting design done and construction. On Cottage Street, we're still waiting to finish that project because we actually have a brick grant coming, which is under Suzanne Kavanaugh's office, which will have part of a long-term control plan. We'll have a storage facility for our water in it. So, but I wanted to point out, as many of you know, Bayonne is at the top in terms of parks. We consider parks a very vital community service for our public and for our children. And just through DEP in the past, we've received Veterans Field, Halecki Park, the teardrop at PABH at the end. We way back got money for Russell Golding, which now we've been successful now to get a HUD grant also for $5 million, but that's not DEP. And also, we've been done most of our work on 16th Street through Green Acres. So Green Acres money doesn't normally come out every year, so we're very grateful that they are going to come out this year, and we are going to, this evening, quickly go through 2 applications that we intend to file. And as I said, these applications were developed by Director Cotter with CME's design efforts. The first one will be on the 24th Street Playground, and that application is for $884,326.30. It'll probably be a little different. They're very specific, but one of the good news is that there are no matches required on these grants. The urban parks, which we'll do second, doesn't have a match, but because we are before our qualifications as our community, an urban aid community, there is no match on this grant, as unlike some other years where we've had significant matches. So we will apply, hopefully we'll get funded, and we will not have any impact on the city budget if we are eligible. This slide is actually just a location, which is 24th Street and Kennedy Boulevard. It's very close to Midtown Community, which is our largest school in Bayonne, and as such, we have many parents who use these parks, and also residents who just like to go out and enjoy the air now that the weather's getting better. So these parks, though, one of the reasons, as I said, parks have always been important to Bayonne. I think we all know that. But one of the nice things is that, unfortunately, because we have so many parks, we haven't been able to really upgrade them. This park hasn't been upgraded in almost 2 decades. So we maintain them, we do a good job, but they need a little bit more than sprucing up. So these parks are being applied for under park restoration. Again, and we really have done a great job. We've been funded not only now by HUD, but The Hudson County Open Space Trust has always been the match when we needed money for that, and we've been able to do many pocket parks in the city with that, with their help. So again, DEP has afforded us an opportunity to apply this year, and we're very, very grateful. That next slide, that's the location map. I think everybody knows where it is located. Very hard to see probably, but I do have hard copies of this for the council, because I thought you might want to look at, especially when you get to the budget, which I barely can read tonight. So I wanted you to take it home and be able to look at exactly what it is. But those are the initial, what is out there now. And it needs to be, it could use a sprucing up, and we're glad that we'll be able to do that. CME has designed, as they have done with many of our parks successfully over the past 8 years, and this is a little bit of a larger parcel, and it allows for multiple opportunities for the things that I'm going to tell you. So, what did we put into this park? And again, designs are designs. Something may change later, but we have cherry trees, we have nice fencing, we have trash receptacles, tree grates, pavers. We have many, 5 to 12 playground structures, swing sets, picnic benches. The existing trees will remain where possible, which is an important thing for Michael here. He'll ask me that question later. There are multiple tables, but not only picnic tables, but chess tables, which allows different age groups to be able to really use the park. It has very nice design features. It'll have not only some chain link fences to make sure that things don't go in and out, but a nice brick fencing, which we've put into most of the exteriors of the parks. ADA compliant, as all our parks are, and all of our playground equipment. And Bayonne, again, starting with the 16th Street Park, we've done a really good job on making sure that we've extended our parks to our disabled and handicapped populations, which is really a tribute to the philosophy of the council and the mayor on this issue. Again, if you can read all these things, I did list out all the things except the concrete pavers and things which you'll see you'll see when you take this home. But I did tell you that the gist of what's happening. And again, the application would be for $884,376.30, and it's a good project. And I hope that if anybody has any comments on it, they put that on the record. It's also always helpful when DEP goes over the application to see not only that we supported it, but we get 1 or 2 comments, and very positive that we will be able to have a successful application. And I'm here for any questions.
Sue, the grant money.
Yes.
That's granted to Bayonne. Let's say we want to use it for parks. So I don't know how it's figured. Maybe you can help me out a little bit, because one of the parks, these are some of the last parks, because we've done so many of them, on 40th Street and Avenue E. And I have constituents that constantly asking me, and we need grant money to do that. So getting this, does that reflect us not getting something? And is there a cap on how much you can get? So that's what I'm asking.
There basically is. So what you'd go on is tradition. And so they put out some guidelines on the urban parks, which is a separate fund, which last year we applied for Bayonne Pool. That is capped at $500,000. The tradition on the general Green Acres parks is $1 million. So, we designed a park. We choose the projects. And so it's really in consultation with Director Cotter. He has a long list of applications that generated from the public, the community, and from the council of parks that you would like to see refurbished. And he digs into with his staff and various people, and they basically develop an application. But we are given guidelines. We have a very successful grant writer, Laura Winthrop from Millennium Strategies, who does Green Acres She doesn't do the HUD and the other things, but, or open space, because we do that ourselves. But she's very successful. We've been very successful in the past for it. So she tells us the guidelines. She sends those guidelines to Ms. Russo and generates it out to the different departments, and we develop a list. I would like to say, though, for tonight, that I do know that there are other parks that have been, that I have been told people would like to see done, and I did make a commitment that we have a new round of HUD funding coming out in April. I've been very successful with the HUD funding the past 2 years. We got Russell Golding for $5 million, and we also got Field of Dreams, the 11th Street Oval, for $1 million. And so if your park isn't on the list, I was going to discuss with.
Okay.
With I was
There's a
gonna
couple tripping hazards we just need
Yeah.
to look at while we're waiting for this grant money, though.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And actually, I sat down with Peter Amadeo, and he gave me some suggestions that he had, which were very minor. A park that on Fifth Street that would only cost $125,000, and we also have applications for Hudson County Open Space floating around in and out. And I was going to discuss with the council at some other point after this application what's next on the list. And I think it's very important for you to have that list so that when opportunities come up, we can fit in. I haven't seen a park that we haven't gotten, a park application that hasn't been funded. So I would
I was
like
really
to.
happy to see all the projects you mentioned,
Yeah.
the $1 million for the Buddy Baseball Field, the $5 million for Russell Golding, all the projects that you mentioned are absolutely deserving and in need.
Right.
So-
But the DEP used to be, when the state of New Jersey used to be one of our prime funders, and because of their budgetary constraints, it kind of fell off for a few years, and then we had to rely on Hudson County Open Space. That fell off because of COVID, because it was a tax-based thing, and then the tax wasn't collected. Now it's being collected again. And the HUD EDI grants were never available to us before. This will be our third year of application, and I already have gotten calls on that from Washington about what we're going to put in for. So, I mean, they didn't ask us for a specific project, but it gets back to parks are a priority for Bayonne. We keep applying, we keep getting funded, and through our good offices of Director Cotter, we keep putting them in the ground. So. But I would hope that you would support his application, which
Always.
I'm taking
For the
care of
parks
tonight.
especially.
Okay, so on that resolution, who'd like to move it?
Move it.
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Real quick, one quick question. Ms. Mack, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate everything that you're doing. Again, with the parks, I just want to become familiar. How long does it take? Oh, there's a mic right there. Either one is fine. Oh, right here. Oh, I'm sorry. I know you can't see me up here. That's fine. That's quite all right. No, that's quite all right. Real quick, just with the applications, just for my own knowledge, how long does it take to get these parks done? Because I do, as you're familiar with, I have people that have been asking me.
Sure.
And Councilman Weimer. I just want to know what I can tell them, okay, with this application tonight. I'm totally all for it. All the parks being done, they look beautiful. But I want to know what I can tell the community, how long it takes.
Nothing is simple, as you've learned. What normally happens, this application will go in March 1st. We should hear during the summer. That's what happened to us last year. We were sitting at a council meeting when we got notification on the Bayonne Pool project last year. So I would believe July, August, we'll hear. If we get the award, you get it automatically, and then it would take one season, definitely. So it would be about a year for preliminary. We have an estimate, but then you go into preliminary design, engineering, and then construction. It takes about a year. I think. Yeah, the conditions, when you get it, depends a lot on where you are in the cycle of seasons. I've been having this discussion with Pete Amadeo about if we got the money. Well, for instance, on Field of Dreams, we'll probably get the money this summer, and then we're matching it with open space. Open space comes out, we'll have the money in September. So then when can you actually build? You can't build in the winter, so you go to a building cycle next spring for summer type of thing. So, but as Director Cotta says, depending on what you're doing, going out to bid, it can take, in my opinion, it takes about 18 months, the average one between, it's got to go to bid, publicly bid, authorization to proceed, things like that, so.
All right, I appreciate it. Again, I spoke to Director Cotter, and, I mean, everything's been positive. I just want to know, again, what I can tell the constituents. I mean, they've been asking for, and you know the park that I'm referring to on
Yes.
19th Street, and there's some legal things that have to be checked out. But I want to tell them, because they're constantly saying to me, you know, this park has been that way since they were kids.
Yeah.
And I know it's a pocket park. There's some ownership issues there that we're working out with legal, but I just wanted to give them some positive feedback.
Yeah, and councilperson, I understand, and I hope that you've had the conversation, you'll have the conversation with Director Coffey. This also is a DEP issue, the park that you're talking about. That's the park where it's on the Rossi, but we have been leasing it, and Councilperson Booker is very interested in us proceeding with that. And as I indicated to you the other day, we should definitely have a meeting on that, because it's an interesting situation, but Alan Miller knows of it. He's our DEP rep, and, you know, and Jay has been working with people on this before. I believe we could make it a priority to look at it again. But it's not a normal situation.
No, it's not, but I
Yeah.
appreciate the input.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
And your vote?
Oh, my vote. Aye.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Carroll? Aye. Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Aye. And Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
And R17 is next.
I'll try to be more straightforward this time. Sorry. Same thing last night. Do you want, am I
No,
the
you go
next
ahead,
one?
and then I'll do it that way.
No,
R17, that's the North Street.
oh, thank you. Okay, I wasn't quite sure what number it was. Okay, the second application, which would be for the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Urban Parks Program, which is a separate program just for urban areas such as ours, and this would constitute the public hearing on the New Jersey DEP Green Acres grant application. And again, this park, this is a refurbishment of a park that already exists. It's North Street Mini Park, and I think you all know where it is. It's basically on North Street at 8th Street, just across from the 8th Street station. It actually was part of our ever-present 8th Street redevelopment plan, which was done by the Department of Community Affairs, which called out the issue in 2015, saying that would be a very, very good goal to have that park refurbished, and now we're back to it now to do it. It's very close to Boat Works, to 105 North Street, and the 8th Street Station. It is very well used, even though it is, you know, an older park that has not been refurbished in, again, for about 2 decades. But it's a very nice, it's a small park. I really consider this one more, I feel like this is a pocket park, because it feels like that when you go to it. Again, it's a smaller area park. The 24th Street Park was about twice the size, and CME has done a design of what they believe that would be put in this mini park. And actually, it basically has the exact same features in it as the other park, except that it is much more a tot lot. It has the water features, which the water sprinkler system hasn't worked in many years because there was a leak in it that was not restored. And the parents and the residents in the area have wanted that to be operated more with the water features in a tot lot, and that would be part of this. It is estimated to cost $512,000, and again, one of the major changes, aside from being a tot lot, would be the spray pad, so that the children would be able to utilize it during the summer, and that's a really nice feature for any of you who have little ones. You know how much they enjoy that. Again, it has all the features that the other park has, keeping the trees where possible. It's also restoring some of the equipment, which is not in the other one. In the other one, we're taking out and putting in all new. In this one, we're actually restoring where we can, which will minimize the cost, but still make it a very nice usable park for us. And again, this one, urban parks our applications are very likely to be approved. So again, I hope that you think it's a good park. project to put in. As I said, the applications are due, no match, and it's due on March 1st. And will be submitted by, if the council approves, it will be submitted by Millennium Strategies for us. Any questions on that? Okay.
And second?
Second.
And I do have copies of the PowerPoint so that you can look at the actual estimate. Can't quite see that yet.
Yeah, I would like that, thank you.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Last two. One is an add-on from the Honorable James M. Davis, appointing Jesse Wolian to the Historic Preservation Commission as alternate number 2 for a term to expire February 28, 2027, and a resolution consenting to said appointment. Would like to move it.
Move it.
Second.
And on that one, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. And Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Last one is authorizing the execution of an agreement with Heartland Payment Systems LLC for credit card processing services for the parking utility commencing February 18, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, with a 1-year option for renewal. Would like to move it.
Move it.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. And Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And with nothing else, I would take a motion to...
1 minute.
Oh.
I have something else. There's a very special lady at home
Oh.
who has a birthday today. Happy birthday, Gianna. Daddy loves you. And I'll make the motion too.
And a second? And on the motion, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Carroll. Yep. Ms. Weimer. And Ms. La Palusa.
I love you. Bye, Gianna. Aye.